A crossover is
crossover dribble.
crossover.
Kyrie Irving crossover in the lane. One of the most famous crossovers of all time. Behind the back, an ankle breaker on Chris Paul.
Crossovers.
The crossover continues to evolve.
Crossover powered by Everlevel Concrete Repair in Omaha at everlevelconcrete.com. Austin and I we're just going over some. We're trying to figure out what ads did Aaron Rodgers have. That conversation has carried over from Gary and I signing off to now the crossover here with Austin Jacobsen, by the way,
right?
In the hizzy.
Yes.
All we can come up with is with State Farm.
There had to be more.
I'm sure there was. Maybe
it feels like there was, doesn't it?
Maybe Gary.
Gary's back,
and he's got energy.
If Gary knows a sponsor,
Gary, can you remember another Aaron Rodgers endorsement other than State Farm?
Was he a Subway guy at one point?
Here we go. I got him. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Do you want to play the guessing game, or do you just want him?
Was there a food one?
There is a food one.
Okay.
Prominent food.
A prominent food.
Yes.
Prominent.
So was it Subway?
It is not Subway. No.
Okay.
Subway sells these. But a competitor.
Culver's.
No.
Oh, careful. I went to Culver's this weekend. They got J.J. Watt
Pistachios.
No, Pizza Hut.
Hold that thought.
He was Pizza Hut?
He was Pizza Hut, yeah.
I don't recall that.
And then a sport athletic clothing brand.
Okay. Adidas?
Adidas. Very good. He also had a healthcare, Bergstrom Automotive.
Perfect partnership.
Healthcare, huh? Wow.
I didn't remember this one. Sharpie. He was a Sharpie guy.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I've always been a Pat guy.
And then Izod.
Yeah.
I don't know what Izod is.
Oh, that's clothing too.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
What are you, 12?
Yeah. Look at me. I dressed like I wore my Crocs too.
You do have your Crocs.
Yeah. I was out in the yard. I was pulling weeds. So
you went from pulling weeds to the show?
Yeah, like a real man would.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
I was telling Gary earlier, I did manly things this weekend. I put in
Did
sod.
you? Hey.
I had to put in some sod this weekend.
I love me laying some sod. I love laying sod. There's nothing better.
I'm rolling that baby. I'm tamping it. Oh yeah.
There's nothing more electric than being on like the youth football team when your coach goes, "Hey, for practice today, we're rolling sod."
Hell yeah!
Oh yeah, baby.
Get out the rollers, boys.
Whole
Use
question
them
about
legs.
that Happer show. Do you love laying sod?
These are all the things that Gary doesn't understand growing up in the
hold on here.
suburban neighborhood of
Well,
Iowa.
when he was in Miami, they weren't doing it.
Well,
yeah.
Hey, back in my day, we had 2-a-days, and we didn't roll those sod.
Oh,
I had 2 days in high school.
I've never heard the phrase, "Let's roll some sod."
Wow. You didn't grow up in a dry environment then.
I went to places where the pickup line was better than that.
Touche.
What boy, Gary?
All right, so I had a listener stop me. I'm glad you brought up J.J. Watt because it's right on the front. You can get the J.J. Watt meal. Like it's four different things, right?
JJ's way, yeah.
Yeah. So that's like Culver's big thing with a Wisconsinite.
Yeah, sure. Makes sense.
I was out at a local high school football field yesterday, and a listener who loves the crossover stopped me and wanted us to talk about a food item and a issue.
Oh.
He encountered a broken ice cream machine at McDonald's once again.
Shocking.
Oh, no.
He said this is the second time in the last 3 trips to this particular McDonald's it's been broken. He goes, I don't know why they don't put it on the marquee because I went through the drive-thru, got up, got ready to order, and they said, we don't have any ice cream. And so then he goes, I was stuck because it was a 2-laner. He explained this whole thing.
Oh, yeah. You can't get out.
And he couldn't go, and there was somebody behind him. So he was irate.
You're boxed
He
in.
goes, but can you guys bring this up on the show? He goes, I'm a big ice cream guy. I like to, when I'm going from school to home or wherever else, I like to drive through particular ice cream places. He said, we have a crisis in this country when it comes to ice cream, like mixers and stuff. He goes, why can't we have like a across the board agreement that some places where the toppings are on top and then the bottom's just ice cream or vice versa.
No, he's 100% right.
He goes, you guys on the show should bring this up because he goes, this is a crisis that we have in America.
Okay, there is a
crisis is about the right word to use. He is correct. Yeah. That's not an over exaggeration by any means.
I have no problem even saying this because some of them do it right. Some of them don't. So for the ones who don't, this is your wake up call. Dairy Queen on 132nd and Maple, they do exactly that. When the Thin Mint Blizzard came out, I could not wait. I was so excited. I got from the top level all it was vanilla soft serve. All of the stuff was just sitting there on the top, nothing at the bottom. Now, the Dairy Queen over on 100 or actually the one in Elkhorn right off of 204th. Amazing. Filling toppings all the way to the very last bite.
Nice.
So Elkhorn, you're doing it right. 132nd of Maple, get it together. It's true. No, he's absolutely right. Very consistent.
Because he goes, if I get like a McFlurry, and he goes, first let me tell you, I'm addicted to ice cream. He goes, I get a McFlurry. He goes, everything's on the top, and the bottom half is just ice cream.
Yeah.
He goes, and then I'll go somewhere else, and it'll be completely opposite. And he goes, we got an issue. And he goes, I think you guys should solve it.
Well, I don't know what they're doing when it comes to training.
Yeah, that's
you've got these employees that they're sponge. They want to take in the knowledge.
The training the thing they put it under and it mixes it together.
Yes,
they're not hand cranking that. Yeah,
they're
not a butter churn.
Yes, whoever it's either the trainer or the trainees that just don't give a blank.
Right,
that's what it is.
Well, you also need to not be living in like a communist country. We have to be able to give a lot of the toppings in because sometimes we're skimping on topping.
Yeah, no, that's true.
The fill-ins, the mix-ins, and everything. There's a difference between the worker, like the guy that when you order a 4-piece like chicken nugget or chicken meal, right, and they give you 5. We need more of those guys working our ice cream machines because they're going to give you the half extra scoop that you need. It's like the Raisin Bran.
Well, it means
the
more
Raisin Bran Sun. We need 2 scoops. 2 scoops.
It's just taking pride in your work, man.
Yeah,
that's what it comes down to.
I think Dairy Queen does it best because they have the machine.
Right.
And I did solve.
But they still don't always get it.
Like when you get a blizzard at Dairy Queen, they turn it upside down. And so I asked the 14-year-old, I'm like, why do you do that? Because when I sit down at the table, I don't turn it upside down.
I don't think he's ever been questioned before at his job.
So. He kind of said that's what we're supposed to do.
They're supposed to give it to you for free if they don't, right?
I just kept it moving. But you know how you can change that? So
talk to your local congressman.
Well, the TikTok world put pressure on Chipotle.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the burrito. Okay, when there was, and you know what? People might want to knock Reddit and TikTok. They actually are some of the smartest people out there. Because they uncover things. So it started as a thread on Reddit is that somebody noticed that Chipotle burritos were getting smaller and they were skimping on the ingredients. Like they just wanted to get you through the line. And they're like chicken or steak, whatever, boom, boom, boom. And then you were to the checkout and you're like, oh, I didn't get to ask for extra cheese or whatever.
Yeah.
So on Reddit, there was this long discussion about how Chipotle is skimping and the price is going up. And then there were pictures that were shared of burritos like a year ago or 6 months ago to now. And it became this firestorm that the CEO had to respond. And then the TikTokers got a hold of it and they went after Chipotle. And then all of a sudden, like the last 2 weeks, the Reddit and TikTok world have been praising Chipotle because they've responded and the burritos are back to being stuffed.
That's good on the CEO of hearing your complaint. Now that your voice matters and he did something about it as opposed to we'll address the situation. We hear you, but they actually did put it into play.
If I'm the CEO of Chipotle, I'm gathering everyone on the board and I'm saying, guys, ladies, thank you for joining me today. We cannot be the epicenter of bad PR anymore.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes, we have to be good.
Yeah.
Forever.
Do we give enough credit to Reddit?
No,
like Reddit is
no Reddit's done their job. They done. I watched the movie Dumb Money the other day.
Yes, great movie by the way.
Great movie.
And Reddit was a big part of that.
Big, huge. Yeah, you got Roaring Kitty out there like bumping up GameStop. We need someone to bump up our ice cream toppings. We need to get those fillings back in.
The only thing I didn't like about Reddit is I actually stumbled onto this. So they're finishing up Yellowstone, filming it before it comes out on November 10th.
Yeah.
Apparently they have ticked off the locals because of when they're filming and a certain place like in Bozeman where they're filming and it's creating a lot of noise. So these Reddit users, they watch the final scene and then they gave a spoiler on Reddit.
Nice. Good for them.
And so they
have
have pictures of the characters that are getting ready for their scene.
That's a way to do that.
That's
man. Actually,
so
that
who's still
perfect.
around by the no.
That's a good way to do that.
This is a big debate on sportsmanlike conduct, the worthiness of Reddit, because Nick gets his news there and John says, how could you? That's dumb. You're a child. Things like that. John is of...
Yeah.
John's used to ripping things off the wire.
He's cracking open the Herald.
The Wire. Oh, we're going old school media.
I saw him do that in Broadcast
Yeah.
House when we were together.
Yeah.
It was
Get
like
off the way.
it would print out and you just rip and read.
We actually, you won't believe this, but when I worked at the Holdridge station, they still had a wire in 2020.
Oh, in 2020?
2020.
That is impressive.
It was,
In
yep.
2012, we still had one in Columbus at the then Three Eagles trailer. That
Ooh,
was our radio
the
station.
Three Eagles trailer. That's a great band name.
And Three Eagles trailer.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that.
Anytime there was severe weather or a watch or a warning, you hear like,
Now, I don't know that I would get all my news off Reddit, but there's a lot of stories. It's kind of like TMZ.
That's
There's
kind
a
of
lot of stories
trending
that are
stuff.
broken on Reddit,
Sure.
or like 5 days after a story comes out,
Yeah.
they'll be like, oh, Reddit user high heat P164 already said this is going to happen. Like, look at the NBA community is very active on Reddit.
Mhm.
So like some of the trade stuff that's mentioned comes out on Reddit.
Yeah.
There was a point last year that people were convinced that Kevin Durant was on Reddit
Yeah, I don't know.
because
that.
there was like a
Oh,
lot of
shocked me.
constantly
there
online,
was like
Kevin
a lot
Durant.
of inside information.
Uh-huh.
with a burner account. Wouldn't
No,
shock
he's
me.
not a burner anymore.
Okay.
He's a
Seems
real boy.
Now
Very
he's just like,
likely
hey,
that-
I'm not even going to hide
Yeah,
behind a
now,
burner.
now he just wakes up at 5 a.m. It's like, all right, got to fire off these
We're
tweets.
talking about when he was clapping at people when he was at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Mhm.
To do
Good
it before
Lord.
the gold medal game is just nuts.
Yeah.
Like to wake up early and be like Kobe was always in the gym. Katie
But-
just gets on his phone.
But
Like
that's
that-
okay. We don't
his
have any other
philosophy.
athletes that are like that.
That is
No.
true. That is true. Oh, speaking on Reddit, I do. I can't say anything bad about the Reddit folks because I actually got sent a Reddit what are they comments or whatever. Someone rated me as the number 2 power ranking of Happer co-host replacements. So
Yeah.
I'll take that.
Oh,
I don't know
that
how
is
many
good.
there have been there, but I'll take number 2.
Could I
Let's-
be forwarded that thread?
Well, there's been
I don't know.
there's
Let's
been at
find this
least
thread.
I know. I
three.
need to
4.
find it.
There's been 4. We got John Schreiner, we got you, we got Jack Mitchell, and we got Josh Peterson. As
I
of
better be
yesterday.
ahead of Jack Mitchell.
Yeah.
Now that I have beef with Jack Mitchell, it's just that weird softball experience.
Hey man,
that
the
just
guy's
came
got
in.
COVID. Okay,
He's selling. Who will sell more gear by the end of the year? The Jack Mitchell softball experience or David Sanders?
oh, that's a good question. Jack Mitchell softball experience, I believe
I think so too.
Yeah.
They have a weird cult following.
they do.
Yeah.
I admit I got sucked into it throughout the season just to see what
Did
was
you?
going on. Well, when you get no hit in a softball
Yes,
game,
and you lose 30-0.
yeah,
it's kind of tough.
it's the train wreck effect. You're
Yes.
gonna pay attention. You're gonna see if it got any better. If it somehow, which I don't know how, would get worse.
Yeah, that
you
is
had
true.
to do it. But yeah, I think there's 4 I know of. Josh, is that right? So it's Austin, John, Josh, and Jack.
Right. Well, I did one too.
Okay.
so
Well,
I don't know if
but
people are counting.
I don't
that.
think you count.
Whoa,
You count to
that's
me.
mean. That's
But-
mean.
What you do
Your
is
day.
invaluable. So we yeah.
Let's see if I can
Would
find this.
love for any enthusiastic listeners to forward.
See, I just got a
Us
screenshot
that
of it from a
thread.
good friend Caleb Henry. He
Okay.
just sent me the full quote
Who was
was
number 1?
I have no idea.
Okay.
The full because he cut the screenshot, but it said no idea who he is, but this Austin Jacobsen cat has done pretty well this week. Might be number 2 on my co-host power rankings already.
Wow. Okay.
Which I respect.
That's
And then I had to
it.
figure out like which Reddit thread this could have possibly been. So I'll have to deep dive
I
investigate.
mean, it's probably our Huskers, right?
I'll probably let the Reddit investigators find that Reddit page for
Sure,
me because then they
sure.
can just report back. If
Yeah.
they're already on, they can find it. Should be good.
give them a mission.
Why don't you just ask your
Please.
parents?
Yes, yeah, because they're clearly online. Speaking of my parents, I do have to go back to, I guess, their side of the state here this weekend because we have to put up a deer blind.
Yeah.
So,
Going to be that time of the year.
it
You got
is.
to be prepared.
I
You got
thought
a
that
good, you got a good spot.
Well, in Custer County, yeah, it's
Okay.
on the second tallest hill.
As opposed to the tallest, which I'm sure is prime real estate. You're not
Yeah,
getting
well,
at.
the tallest my grandpa's house is on. So,
Oh,
you
okay,
can't
so
put a
this-
deer blind next to a house.
well,
Come
that's.
on.
I mean,
You just shoot from the backyard. It's
technically you
different.
could, but
Yeah.
yes, it's probably frowned upon.
Yeah.
Probably a little too close for comfort.
Right.
I understand that.
Oh, speaking of hometowns, I know this is a wild transition.
Keep it
but
going.
Sounds like it.
I need your 2 help and also need more clarity because
Okay.
moving to Omaha, my girlfriend, Dr. Girlfriend, and I, we
Dr. Girlfriend.
had heard of the
Hey,
epidemic.
what
of-
happens if she dumps you?
Well, then she's just a doctor after that, I guess.
She's no longer your Dr. Girlfriend.
Yeah. And I'm just ex-radio guy.
I like Dr. Girlfriend. I
Yeah,
don't-
Dr. Girlfriend, not bad, right?
That is a good way to.
But we had
to-
heard about the epidemic of coffee shops there's too many of them in Omaha. And
There's
so
a lot of options.
there's a lot of options.
Yeah, you do.
There's an epidemic of pizza places in this town too. We
Oh,
were
yeah.
trying to figure out where to get a good pizza like
Oh.
Saturday, and we asked 2-3 different people, just texting people that have been here for a
Yeah.
while, and we got various
How many
answers.
How many people said La Casa?
Ooh,
Have you seen
none?
the
I didn't see any
sign?
La Casa. No, didn't get any.
They do have a good lunch special.
Overrated.
Yeah.
So Little Caesars.
Overrated. Yeah.
Hot and ready.
I do love me a little squeezers.
There's a little
and
Goes in,
really
goes out the same.
nice little Italian spot. It's you can find them. They got a couple now. They've branched out, but it's called Domino's. Really, really good.
Do they have any of those Sbarro New York slices hanging around these parts?
But we do have a Sbarro.
We got
in the airport, right?
standalone.
We got a
What?
standalone. 90th and Maple.
Yep.
In the
Blondo.
convenience store. Blondo. Yeah.
Okay.
Right in the convenience
Get your
store.
favorite
All right.
New York
It
slice
actually
right
is
there.
really, really good.
Can't wait for that
It's
Sbarro.
the
So what
sauce.
they do is when you go in there and order, they heat up the piece of pizza.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh,
not like
yeah.
Casey's where you reach in and you grab it.
Yeah.
There,
Well, we're an
you,
anti-Casey's.
you order it.
Oh,
Casey's
you are?
Pizza is
Great
a
take.
banger.
Casey's pizza is great, but it has to be there.
When they have it, yeah.
Yeah, when they have it.
Oh.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
The
Supply
best ability is
chain.
availability,
Yeah.
and Casey's just hasn't been available.
Hold the
Okay.
thought on Casey's,
Please.
because I have an observation because I was just recently there.
Can't wait.
But at Sbarro, they take it out and then they warm it up,
Okay.
and it's a healthy slice. Yeah, it's inside of the convenience store.
It's actually
At-
quite the opposite of a
at-
healthy slice.
Yeah.
It's a large
It's
slice.
a large
of pizza.
slice. You might have to dab it. You have
So-
to
There
dab
you
the
go.
grease a little bit.
So it's go
Oh,
to
it's
90th
like
and Blondo.
cafeteria
It's
pizza.
inside the
Mhm.
cafeteria,
Yeah.
inside of the convenience store, and it's really good.
Do they still? Okay, I don't know if this Sbarro does. And Josh, I know you gave us a food court update on Oakview, that's where Sbarro was thriving at one point. So
Yes.
no more Sbarro there,
No.
right?
There's no,
No,
Sbarro
it's-
in Oakview?
It's 2 Indian establishments and Vicks.
Like the Vapor Road?
Orange Julius isn't there
I
anymore.
correct.
IP Orange
I believe
Julius.
that's end of list.
Oh my god! But I remember not only the pizza, but then they had the killer bread twists or garlic bread like
Oh, yeah.
sticks. They were
Mhm.
so good. See, for me, I'm a big Mama's Pizza. You cannot
Okay.
go wrong with.
Can I
pizza-
say where we went
Sure.
on Saturday? We went Paizones.
Oh yeah,
Paizones, sorry.
that's
choice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very
owner
We
good.
went
Yep.
to the,
Shady fella.
let's see, would have been the one-off center. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the
I
only
didn't
one.
realize there were two.
Oh, there is two.
Oh, hold on.
That's what I was told. That is
Wait,
there not
I
two?
don't think you went to the
Okay.
right place then. There's
Well, no,
not
we
two.
we
There's
went.
just the OG.
Yeah, on-
156th.
on
Yeah,
center.
yeah,
Yeah.
next
Right by
to
Scott.
Scott. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's where we went.
There's
Yeah.
not a second one.
Okay, then someone has told us they went to a second one. So
Someone's
whoever
trying
went
to send you on a wild goose
yeah,
chase.
whoever went to the second one, they
Well,
didn't go to the
actually,
right place.
I am trying to mooch off the good name of Matt Verzal, and I'm an imposter.
Okay.
Yeah.
So don't go to Josh Otson's
Okay.
Paisans.
Okay,
The
very good.
ingredients are going to lack.
All
a
right,
little bit.
so let's have a discussion about Casey's.
Okay.
Let's.
Um,
This is a healthy debate.
See what you
so
did there.
Casey's is it's quite a good people watching spot, but also
It's true.
what's up with the slot machines that are in Casey's?
Mhm.
What's up with the
Oh,
slot
sure,
machine?
yeah.
Yep.
I didn't even get to that the other day.
Strategically located next to the motor oil, which is great.
They're
A great,
just
great
like-
location for a
like,
slot machine.
I was standing in line, and all of a sudden I looked over because this guy was making a noise, and I thought, "Is there somebody going down?" And the guy was playing.
Somebody
The,
always dies near you.
yeah.
I know. I haven't.
Is
bad
that
thing.
true?
It happens.
Oh.
But I was like, the guy is like living his best life playing. They're not slot machines, but they're like the Vegas games.
Right.
I know they have them at what's the convenience store that's everywhere?
Casey's.
No.
Quick
M.
Shop.
Dollar
M.
General.
Quick Trip.
No, and it starts with an M.
Mega Saver.
Mega
Oh
Saver.
yeah, man. Okay.
Okay, so they have
yeah,
those games
yeah,
in there.
yeah, uh-huh.
Plus, in Mega
I should've
Saver,
been
you
the
can
one to
get
get that
anything
before.
you want.
They're going to say
I
marathon.
mean,
oil.
knives, shots, all that kind of stuff. But I'm watching this guy, and the guy's living his best life. I'm like, Casey's is so random to have these.
Yes.
And it must be a thing because they're in like almost every Casey's now
Yeah.
in Omaha.
It is. Yep. Very true.
I saw I think
Like-
the first one I saw, we're in the Columbus one weekend, and I saw. I'm like, oh, they're
Like,
Which
leaning
again,
into
I
is
would
this.
it-
take a Columbus Casey's over any Omaha Casey's. I want to be clear about that.
Yeah.
Why?
Because the smaller community you go to, the better
That is
the
true.
Casey's
That's
is.
where they really have embraced the
they
Casey's.
take their pride in.
It is a special
Mhm.
place. You're right.
But is the
agree with
Vegas
this.
type game at Casey's a destination?
Well, to a regular Casey's goer, yes.
I don't know if it's a destination. I think it's very convenient. It's there. You're picking up maybe some pizza. Maybe you're getting a couple of grocery goods as you're filling up, and all of a sudden, hey, you know what? I got a couple dollars.
Like a guy
to
in the
spend.
neighborhood, does he walk down to the local Casey's to play the Vegas games?
Nobody's
But
nobody's just playing one.
No.
Yeah,
right?
but
You're hunkering down for a couple hours.
if you clock in like a 9 to 5 at your Casey's and just play the slots, and then you get a cup of noodle and a slice of pizza, that's a good day. That's a pretty good day.
Yeah, I went to I can't remember the name of it, and in Lincoln had a whole room of these games.
Oh, not U-Stop.
No, it was a U-Stop.
It was?
It was it was a very nice U-Stop.
That's an
There's some,
oxymoron.
there are some nice. No, there's some nice Lincoln U stops.
Yeah,
I've been to one or two in Lincoln.
You don't like the one where everybody stops at before they get on the interstate on 84th?
Yeah, that's my favorite one. Yes.
There's across from the jail and the courthouse is kind of an interesting U-Stop in Lincoln.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Bernie says about Casey's Pizza. Casey's Pizza sucks now.
Ooh.
Used to be good, now awful. You know, there's a reasoning behind that because they put so much into their delivery and pickup that the single slice has deteriorated.
Oh,
That's my
is
take.
this like your Uber Eats theory?
Yes.
Very, very similar.
Yeah, because they want to make sure that the fresh pizza is going out to the customers that have ordered like a whole pizza.
Okay.
Mhm.
And so they are discounting us that just want one slice.
Yes.
That does make sense, I guess.
Yes.
But
You know.
I can firmly say that a slice of Casey's pizza is much better than an entire Casey's pizza.
I don't know
Well,
that I've ever eaten a whole Casey's
I'm-
pizza.
I would get on board with that.
Yeah.
have you ever
Now,
stepped up and used
now,
two
Casey's,
and made a
Casey's
pizza
taco
sandwich?
pizza.
I've never done that. No.
Hold on.
It's good.
Casey's taco pizza.
Oh, don't
Is-
no. No
Is this
taco
the one that
pizza.
you said they do it the right way because
Zero.
they put the lettuce on the side?
Yep.
Zero
Lettuce
taco
and the
pizza.
chips on the
Everywhere.
side, so
That
you
is
can
a
do
stroke of
taco
genius.
pizza your own way.
That's a
Okay.
stroke.
I
of
can't
genius.
believe I joined a group of stations that are pro taco pizza. That is so disheartening. So disappointing.
It just depends on where you get it at.
It just goes against my American value to put a taco pizza.
Really?
Together. Yeah.
Have you ever had one?
Yeah, I've had plenty of taco pizzas.
And you don't like it?
No, it's not for me. Homemade. I've had, all of the different brands and everything, the different stores and slices you can get. No, taco pizza.
Do you like Hawaiian pizza?
I can handle a Hawaiian
Oh,
pizza.
see.
I'm good with that.
Oh, you're out now.
Yeah, I don't like
Wah,
that.
Fine.
I can't do.
Now we have 2 pizzas.
Where's that Reddit post number? He's falling to number 3.
He's
Dropping
not-
to 3.
Dip down to number
Dropping
3.
You like putting fruit? You like putting fruit on warm surfaces?
Fruit on warm surfaces.
So you're putting a pineapple on
Oh,
a warm pizza?
Gotcha.
Mhm.
No, that ain't for
I thought
me.
you're making like a euphemism for a second.
And
I
I'm
was
not
like,
even.
no,
I'm
I
not,
don't. I don't
I'm
think
not
so.
a fan of
You got a
ham.
girlfriend.
I'm not a fan of ham on pizza. Ham on pizza is also
You're not a ham on pizza guy.
no.
What about Canadian bacon?
I hate Canadians.
I would
Well,
They're
fair.
burning the atmosphere.
pepperoni,
It is their fault.
sausage, or
But all these
hamburger.
houses.
I'm good with that.
I blame Canada.
Canada has been giving us a very comfortable couple of weeks though.
Yeah.
So
Remember when Canada just fought us with their
smoke?
their wildfires? That was
yeah,
crazy.
didn't they? Yeah,
How dare they?
they tried to move us down to Mexico.
Where's
They-
the
they-
Homa Dome for that?
They tried to throw us off before they invaded. Is that what you're saying?
yeah, something like
They
that.
throw the smoke at us. Now
They
they're giving us
literally
nice
threw out
cool
a
air.
smoke signal.
Yeah.
Well,
and
the-
we didn't see that they were coming after
because
us.
what the smoke did is it raised our guard. Now with the
True.
nice weather, it's lowering our guard. We're all getting relaxed. This is where
Any
you
of you
gotta be
guys
worried.
actually know a Canadian that is not affiliated with sports?
like
Like
personally
personally
know a Canadian?
know a Canadian?
No,
I know an Alaskan. That's about as close as I can get.
No.
Technically not.
I feel like I
Well,
should.
Well,
Canada.
actually,
No, I do not.
I like offhand know a Canadian. There's a guy who runs the Cornhusker fishing camp up in
Okay.
But fish-
Saskatoon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
Saskatoon.
When does
Saskatoon,
Kansas start
I feel like in the
to-
fall.
trying to smoke bomb us?
I feel like in the
Yeah.
fall they start getting after it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We get that occasional southerly breeze in the fall, which is rare, and all of a sudden we're like, oh, Kansas.
Can't
Why?
see or breathe
I'm
outside.
still pissed about the Kansas-Nebraska Act.
Would you like to elaborate on
Yeah,
that?
for us non-history majors, would you like?
Wasn't it called the Kansas-Nebraska Act?
There is a Kansas Nebraska Act, yes.
the Liberty Bell?
Are we 11 now?
Yes.
The Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 was a territorial organic act that created the territories of Kansas and Nebraska. It was drafted by Democratic Senator
Oh.
Stephen A. Douglas,
Great.
passed by the 33rd United States Congress, and signed into law by President Franklin Pierce.
But he has an electric
Dang
mower.
lib-
The only
Liberals.
reason that I know a little bit about that is because there was a Nebraska-Kansas football game back in the late 90s that the play-by-play guy would open up with this big monologue, and it included the Nebraska-Kansas Act
Respect
Oh.
that.
for about 4 minutes.
Could you say what year that might have been?
It was Frank Solich was the head coach.
Oh, okay.
Now, Kansas, Nebraska, not a trophy game, right? That was not a trophy
No,
game, I don't think.
correct.
Yeah. Nebraska, Missouri.
Yes.
Yes,
Was
that
that
was the
the
victory
only-
bell.
Yeah, that was that the
Yeah.
only original conference trophy game we had?
Yeah,
Wow,
it
that's
was.
sad. That's sad.
I don't even know where the victory bell exists. Is it on like
Well-
somebody's desk? And
Well, Nebraska would have it, wouldn't they?
Yes.
Did they win the last one?
Is it a doorstop?
We have done this before. Connor and I ended up finding it. And
Oh, you did?
You found
somebody said it's at our office on campus.
Oh, okay. They've been like, it's here in
in
this
the
building.
athletic department, or just random?
I believe it's more random than the athletic office.
Now, could Trev Alberts have taken the victory bell with him? Because he could technically play for the victory bell now, right?
That is true.
He could.
Yep.
He could.
But it would say Nebraska.
I think.
would.
I mean,
Yeah,
he'd have
it
to take.
would,
He'd have
right.
to actually like
I think all the stuff
unscrew
he
the
took from
bell.
Nebraska, his trunk was full. So,
That is true. That's fair. Yeah.
but we don't really buy into trophies because remember when Nebraska won in Iowa City the last
Mhm.
time,
Yeah.
where that trophy ended up.
Yeah, it was just like hanging out in like the players' lounge, like off to the left and not
Th-
like showcased.
Well,
or
then it
anything.
was on a receptionist's desk, and just randomly a video showed it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was just kind of like sitting there
Yeah. They're like, what do we do with this thing?
instead of like down in a trophy case.
Yeah, it wasn't on
Interesting.
display. Bigger things.
We used to have
bigger
a
hardware.
trophy epidemic, but I don't think it's as bad anymore. Just conference realignment, obviously, that changes
Oh,
everything.
you just wait till the new members get acclimated into the Big Ten. What trophy games will involve?
I want a
them in.
corn duck. Let's get a corn duck trophy. Where the beak is a corn cob. We'll do that.
Okay.
See, everyone's thinking now.
What
I
about-
think that's not a bad idea. The corn duck.
What about Herbie and the duck merge into one just horrific looking thing? Mhm.
Herbie wings. We should actually make it
Herbie
the older
puddles.
Herbie, the bad Herbie, right?
Yeah,
Just
well,
make it,
yeah.
make it the
Ooh.
bad one.
Don't get Gary going on that.
What if we?
He's not a new Herbie fan.
You're not a new Herbie guy.
They didn't like new. Herbie.
No.
Is it because he throws up a 2 now? He's throwing peace signs.
I don't care what he throws up.
Deuces.
He can be back to the old Herbie that threw gang signs. The face is god awful. The eyes, the whole thing is messed up.
But he represents all of Nebraska.
No, he doesn't. I can
don't
walk
know.
out of this building
I read
and
the
I
press
will not
release.
run into one person in this parking lot that looks like Herbie.
Well, yeah, you're in the
No.
wrong parking lot.
But he would. They introduced
I'm
him
not
while he was upstairs in a
stereotyping
corn crib.
Nebraskans.
I would. I mean, he looks like most of the people I grew up with.
He looks like one guy, and that's the guy that dresses as the real life Herbie that comes to the game.
It's good. It's a good.
What
point.
if we got together with UCLA and had like the Brewsker?
Just a
trophy?
beer mug?
The Brewsker.
We
Yeah.
should make a Brewsker beer.
Yeah.
It does sound
I'm
like
down- I'm
that.
down
Could,
for
that
that.
could be a.
Yeah.
You could have a compilation.
The guy that
between
lives
a
down here on
LA
52nd
brewer?
that has the UCLA flag outside.
Yeah, yeah.
They should host the Brewsker there.
The Brewsker.
Brewsker.
That could work. Oh, there's going to be some. There's going to be some just idiotic trophy games coming
Yeah.
up in the next 2 years. You just wait. We're not done with it. That's what we do in the Big Ten, and they'll learn that. Oregon, Washington, LA schools.
Yeah.
Enjoy.
There is only one trophy that has been created recently that I would get behind, and that was Nebraska, Minnesota.
Yeah. 5 bits broken chair.
And we have to take this year off.
That's sad. I'll
I
miss
thought the
our
Big Ten
annual
loved
squabble with
tradition.
They were-
PJ Fleck.
They were running with that thing too. Like they were raising a lot of money for charity with that, even though neither athletic department wanted to acknowledge or recognize it as a.
Who would have
Actual
thought the only
trophy.
person that ever recognized the trophy was Mike Riley?
Yeah, that's true.
Did they ever recognize that the Will Compton podcast trophy? The
Oh, the bus one,
the Bussin'
the Michigan
trophy,
and Nebraska.
yeah, which is a ridiculous trophy.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they came up with that, like that's all in Michigan's wheelhouse. They came
Yes.
up with the absolute wrong time to do a trophy game for that. Like, oh,
Yep.
Michigan's at the height of their powers.
Yeah.
Nebraska's never been worse. So
Yeah.
great time for it.
And now they're not going to play each other every year either.
No.
Not that they were before anyway, but still.
I think before the conference realignment, they were scheduled for like 7 straight years or something.
Yeah, there was. That's right. There was a lot of Michigan, Nebraska on the schedule.
Mhm.
You're right.
But now it's all over.
I know. That trophy would have made sense.
Our sacred rivalries are just never the same. College football's ruined.
Gary's right, though. I think the most popular one that actually got people like excited just because it was not an actual sanctioned Big Ten trophy game was the 5 bits of broken chair. That
Yeah.
one was fun.
Yeah.
And they did good things with it. So,
So the answer is let Fo Pelini create the rest
yes,
of our trophies.
Fopoli should
Yeah.
do more. And I
Mhm.
think he should be part of, even with the new additions to the Big Ten. Let that just, he's creative guy.
Yeah, I'm all for it.
Mhm.
Yeah, how upset was he when Bo left?
Pretty upset. Sarcasm, though, he's not.
He's
I think he's gone back to paying more attention to his day job in Chicago.
Yeah.
There's a couple of old Husker Twitter pages I think about every once in a while. Like the Tunnel Walk of Shame is done.
Oh God, I love Tunnel Walk of Shame.
That was a good one,
especially when Taylor was here.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Tater Martinez,
the Coach Dad. That was the most fantastic. I looked forward to it every Friday. It was Friday mornings, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
God, that was great.
They had good ones. They had some good ones.
Amani Cross.
The Amani Cross. They were in love with Amani Cross.
Yes. Money. See. Oh my God, it was so funny. That one was good. Yes, Foe still, he's not as active, but he'll drop in from time to time.
Yeah.
He just reminds us he's still out there. He's still paying attention.
Well, he always pulls the classic, like whenever someone breaks a record in a game. Yeah. And he'll always just be like, what's the score?
Yeah.
Classic. Hits every time. Works.
Yeah. He does. You know what? Actually, one of my favorite things that anytime there's the most oddball, usually it's either the Florida or Ohio man thing. Some type of crazy crime story. Yeah. There was always the quote tweet of Carl. Yeah. It was always so good.
What was speaking of Husker Twitter accounts, what was the one that was just a pure scam? Like the guy had a store.
Oh,
was it Husker Army?
That was when Scott Frost got hacked and was selling IMAX.
Wait, what? People do forget about that.
Yeah.
That was a crazy day.
It was hilarious.
He's a private Twitter account now.
Uh-huh.
Scofro is?
Yeah.
Oh, come on.
Because he got hacked.
Hey, that is an
autographed IMAX.
That is a great find in memory of that did happen. Mm-hmm. That one day he got hacked and he was selling laptops and
well, I remember seeing the screenshot of someone like trying to log into his account, and you do like the forget your password and you put the at whatever your handle is, and it linked to a Gmail account. So he was, and not to say he's like a political figure by any means, but like when you're the head football coach of a major program and major university and you're just casually just throwing your Scott Frost Gmail.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? Lately, I don't know why it's been just as of late. Maybe I'm friends with somebody on Facebook but he's been a friend suggestion almost every time I get a friend suggestion. Nice. It's Scott Frost holding up a big fish.
Oh, good. Yeah. Good for him.
I'm sure it's probably him too.
Yeah.
I've looked at the common friends and there are people that I would assume are friends of Scott Frost.
But you got to friend them just for the bid.
I kind of want to, but it's him holding up a big fish.
If it doesn't pan out, you unfriend them. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if I'm not getting any content out of this thing, what is this relationship giving me? Yeah. I want to know that if I ever make my way to Arizona, that I could maybe meet up with him at
get a big fish
at Four Peaks Brewing.
Crash on the couch.
Yeah. He's got plenty of space.
Yeah, he's been back to Lincoln a couple of times this summer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Golfing?
No, I don't know if he had like an event or something.
Oh, okay.
But he has been spotted in Lincoln. Very low profile.
Yeah. Fixing the dent on that truck.
Special teams clinics?
That's a question that never got answered.
I know. There's so many.
Go to the Reddit page. They'll figure it out.
Yeah. See,
they know.
That's why a sit down, not of, hey, how come it didn't work out? Mm-hmm. Like those kind of questions we need to have answered.
I would love to conduct that interview.
Like when they said slide down the railing, what was going through your head?
Because
like when they said, hey, we got to cut that again. Can you go back up?
I know why it didn't work. I don't need to ask him those questions. I have those answers. We don't have to talk about that. We can talk about the other stupid crap you did.
So I'll give you options here. Of the former coaches, Frank, Bill, Bo, Riley, Scott.
Which one first name?
Which one would you like to sit down with to have your questions answered?
Mike. 100%.
I'm dead even with Bill Callahan and Scott Frost. I'd really like to sit down with Bill. I know it's not the popular one, but I want to know what he thought of when some reporter asked him, if you were the athletic director, would you fire you? And that's where it all kind of began.
Yeah.
And then to the very end where he just stopped wearing Husker gear to press conferences and was just wearing the beige. I just there's so many questions. Like, at what point did you just hate all of us? Every one of us.
I would pick Scott, but yeah.
People forget about
a timeline from him would be interesting.
Yeah, it really would be. But the Scott, there's just so many things I want answered. So many things.
Why does nobody want to talk to Bo?
Because he
like
beat you up, probably. I don't want a verbal lashing.
I
While I'm, like,
feel like Bo's.
hanging
I
out.
feel like Bo's giving us some stuff.
Just
Yeah,
gonna
and
say a
he
bunch of
has-
problematic stuff.
That's the other
about-
part too, is that Bo has like kind of opened up about a lot
Yeah,
of that stuff. and
whether he knew
no.
whether he knew he
There-
was or not.
There would be a couple of things. One, I would want to know about the hotel story on the day of the Texas game, if that's true or not. Might be a leading question.
Yeah.
Then he's got to have thoughts on the leak tape
Well, sure.
that he has
Yeah.
never shared.
Yeah.
And then I would love to hear. So the year that we thought he was going to get fired, on that Saturday morning,
Yeah.
when he spent the whole week telling his assistants, if you have agents, tell them now we all need to be looking for jobs. And then what the conversation was like on that Saturday morning between him and Eichhorst,
Right.
that they were like, we're keeping you, and his reaction.
Mm.
Like, what did you do? Did you go home? Did
starts
you call somebody and
Listen
go,
here, you pencil neck geek. You're supposed to fire me.
What am I supposed to tell guys at the World Herald now? He starts unpacking his packed up belongings. It's like, I guess I'm here another year. God dang it.
and then the next following year of all the stuff that went on?
Yeah. You're right about the leak tapes, especially, I mean, there was the first one and then having the team meeting. That
Oh,
one
the team meeting would be a great one.
where he
too,
calls Sean a certain word. It seemed to get a laugh out of people.
That's what sucks now
in the
around here.
audience.
Like we might be covering and following an adult football program.
Yeah.
Yeah. We haven't had like any like just, oh my God, what the heck's
I don't
going
know.
on?
We were, I mean, at the
I'd like to try it this way for a little while longer.
yeah, this isn't bad. I mean, we did have a break into a vape shop last year. People,
did.
People
do
forget. People do.
forget.
That is one people forget.
But good on
Yeah.
Matt Rule
Yeah,
to
okay.
keep
So
that thing like
I will go
squashed.
back here. So we've had a assistant coach DUI gone.
True.
We've had a vape shop, and then we had an assistant coach that was forced to hit the road.
Yep.
In June.
But good on Rule. They've kept it. They squash it right away, and then it doesn't really become. It's like I want to talk more about this, but I can't. because
Yeah,
we've
it's
already-
weird how
we've already
we-
dealt with this.
It's weird how the Huskers have like actual football problems
Yeah.
now, rather than just every other circumstance of problems.
I'd like them to get so good again that the players are getting in trouble.
Mm.
Yeah, where all of a sudden you are.
That is true.
You just wanna be Georgia?
You are on top of the world.
We haven't had like a stealing bicycles scandal in a
Oh,
while.
Yeah.
that was a good one. That was a fun time. I miss the stealing
I forgot
bicycles.
about that.
I
one.
remember I told my dad that, and for the rest of that season, every time he'd make a tackle or something, he'd just go, "That's that guy."
God,
I'm like,
totally,
"Yep,
I totally
sure is,
forgot
Dad.
about that one.
Sure is."
Leo
Yep.
DiCaprio meme.
Yeah.
And like he would be with a friend, or we'd be like at my grandpa's house, and he'd just be like, "You know what he did?" Be like, "Yeah, Dad, we got it."
I am
That's true.
surprised that Deadspin hasn't done and then Deadspin isn't like held in the same regard as they were when the story came out about the audio tape, that they've not done like 10, 15 years later.
Where are they now? Everyone.
Chasing 3, episode 4,
How
the
many-
Bo years.
They just do a look back. You know, when you're really getting into a series, all of a sudden they do a flashback.
Yeah, right.
See, that would be great. If you're just trying to kill some time till the next like current content,
Yeah,
it's like, hey,
That'd be
you
perfect.
know what? Let's go back in time. Let's where it all got going. I
not
mean,
a
that's
bad
not really
idea.
where it all got
Not a
going,
bad
but-
idea. They just do the full team meeting
Yeah.
where
Yes,
Bo
yes.
tells the team.
From
That would be great.
start to
I would
finish.
watch every
I would
minute
too.
of that. Every minute.
There's probably other camera angles too that we just haven't seen yet.
100%.
Now, there is a thing about when you get fired at Nebraska. Frank's really the only one that's come back.
Mhm.
Nobody talks about their time at Nebraska. Even when Bo has been with on the Bussin' with the Boys,
Mhm.
he only talks about things that went on with the football players, like times they had, in the locker room or games or stuff like that. He won't get into anything else.
He talked a little bit about the AD stuff, just a little, but he never gets
Yeah.
too into
Yeah.
it. Yeah. You can tell he's on top of the problem, but he's never going to get further in.
So Callahan has never publicly spoken about Nebraska.
Nope.
Hasn't mentioned it. His first year when he was back in the NFL and he's away from Nebraska, there was a local reporter that went to God, where did he go? Not Cleveland.
Was it Dallas? Was he at Dallas first?
Wherever he
No, I think it
was.
was Washington, wasn't he?
Okay.
I think it was, I think it was
So-
in Washington.
A local reporter went because they wanted to talk to him. And Callahan recognized him and they said, I'm not he told the media person, "I'm not talking." So he has never publicly said anything about Nebraska, even though he's had Nebraska guys that have played for him on the offensive line, but he's never said anything publicly. Mike Riley has, I mean, Mike Riley would, but his experience would be, I had a good time. And, you know,
just didn't work.
People were great. I love everybody here. You guys heard my post firing press conference. I answered questions.
See, there's a lesson to be learned here. If you get fired at Nebraska, you just disappear.
Should we go to Nashville and try and ask Bill some questions? I think enough time's passed.
We'd at least have Brian.
Yeah, now I mean,
Brian has something.
He's in a happy place. He's working for his son now. That's pretty cool.
This person told me that he was very cordial.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not gonna talk.
I understand.
You want to talk about the NFL and coaching, offensive line, that kind of stuff? I'll talk about it, but I'm not talking about my time.
What if you pull him and Zach Taylor in the same room? Think they would talk about their time together?
I could see them talking about their relationship because they had a lot of good years.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of good memories.
Yeah, but you don't ever hear him like attached. Like the success of Zach Taylor in the
true.
NFL, you don't ever.
Yeah,
like
he never gets to Nebraska.
No one brings up that, hey, did you know he played for Bill Callahan?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
That's right. Yeah.
I would assume that Zach Taylor has good things to say about him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the one who gave. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the things that Zach Taylor learned at the profession he's in right now probably came from Bill anyway. So I can't imagine that there's any animosity there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I feel like they're just too far distanced in the past. It's Nebraska's so far in the rearview mirror for both of them that they probably just, unless something completely tragic happens to them that they need to be brought back up in the limelight, they're not going to bring it back.
Yeah.
You went to a dark place there, but I get what you're saying.
My bad.
Like we've requested Bo. Like I've reached out to Bo. I think probably 4 times. Once I got a response.
His 25th anniversary is coming up.
I know.
Oh,
nice.
I know.
Of the station.
Let him know that.
That'd be a good get.
It might be a motivation for him.
You know this before you got here. We tried to hire his brother to do a midday show.
Carl?
The Carl
Nice.
experience.
So
It's called Hot Carl.
a few GMs back.
We didn't have that in the budget.
Would Carl Pelini be the #1 co-host for the Connor Happer show?
Oh, he'd be at the top of those rankings.
He'd be #1 in probably the Midwest.
So Carl was between jobs. He had just kind of gotten turned down for a high school job in Des Moines. And we said, would he be a good talk show host just for an hour from 12 to 1 every day? And I approached him, and I think he thought about it for a little bit, but then he goes, I really want to just keep coaching football.
It's fair.
That 7 minutes of dead air really sucked. But after that, super huge amount of energy, lots of hot chicks in the studio. I tell you, it was worth it. It was worth that 7 minutes of silence.
The environment changed like that.
Okay, so the meeting is, at first we were like, I don't know. And then the more you thought about it, like, this might be golden.
Yeah.
If he was willing to be Carl on the air, it would be golden.
Yep.
And tell stories.
Because if he's great at it, it's great. If he's terrible at it, it's also great.
It's still there's still content there.
He's just it's just straight down the middle that we can't have.
Right.
Yeah.
So he thought about he thought about it for like a day and a half, and he was like, I just want to coach football. He goes, that's not for me.
Yeah. Damn, I'm just a football coach.
What could have been.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
The Hot Carl hour.
Man, maybe we need to do a 1620 timeline. We need to go back and revisit all the could have been, would have been show hosts.
1620 The Zone. What if?
The what ifs.
Chasing 1620.
Well, I mean,
That feels like a pretty big what if.
yeah. Well, I don't know. You know what? I don't think it's a big what if. There weren't many. I mean,
Did you imagine? Yesterday, Josh, I heard, said that he hadn't solo hosted a show since the Nick Baugh era. Could you imagine if it was the Carl Pelini era? That would have been fantastic. Just that poll every once in a while. People forget Carl Pelini was on for an hour every day on the Zone.
Remember when you guys hired Carl Pelini?
That would be the shot heard around the world.
well, they also remember we hired Jason Peter.
You did.
That did happen. Can't take it away.
Yep.
Jason Peter lasted here longer than Carl Pelini.
That is true. That is
Can't
true.
take that away
good.
from JP.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
But when you say on air, young, dumb, and full of,
Oh.
Yep.
Come on now.
oh no, it was real.
Okay.
Had to be reminded that you can't say that on air. So we had to have an apology.
Did you do a notes app?
Did you do the
was there,
apology?
was there
or
a
did he-
notes app back in the day?
Right.
Should've done
Oh,
notes app.
so
Right out the box.
so this is probably I learned a lot.
day.
I learned a lot sitting next to Jason, but he said he would get fired up about Nebraska football. And one day he just went off on Bo because Jason brought him a Springsteen album that was signed and Bo blew him off. So Jason came on the radio and just crushed Bo. Just absolutely like his morals and his ethics.
Because he wouldn't accept my gift.
Yes.
So
Nothing brings people together like hate from the boss. Yeah.
Springsteen album, huh?
Yeah, it's random, but I like it.
Is Bo Pelini a Bruce Springsteen fan? Is that what we're getting at?
I think he
this?
was.
Okay.
I could see Bo being a Springsteen.
Is that
fan.
what he puts on to relax?
Just blue collar guy. Made
Yeah.
it. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah,
Respect
what-
the hell
what
out
does-
of that.
What does Bo
Very
Pelini-
popular in Youngstown, Ohio.
A
Yeah.
guy out of Jersey? Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the season got started and they weren't playing so well. And that's the famous, you know what? Kids these days are young, dumb, and full of it rhymes.
Yep.
And we didn't know what to do. And it was silent in the studio.
We didn't know what to do. What?
Was that the Carl Pelini 7 minutes of silence?
Then Shane was the producer at the time. He was like, maybe we ought to go to commercial. It's the commercial. Nothing is said in the studio. And then Jason looks at me and he goes, should I have said that?
What was your response?
I said, nah. I go, yeah. I go, you were good until that last word.
We dial it back about 7%.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, what should I do?
Oh,
I said, maybe just make a correction.
that's what word rhymes with that. Got it. Sorry, I
Oh,
was
yeah.
trying to figure that out in my
Have
head.
you ever seen the original Point Break? That's when I first heard it. Was the
Okay.
original Point Break?
Well, I have seen the Point Break,
Yeah,
so
the-
now I'm disappointed it took me that long. To
The
figure out.
original
Alright.
Point Break. It said, yeah.
All right, at some point, you guys got to do your show.
Yeah, we'll
Thank you
get
for
there.
walking down memory lane.
Yeah, that was
that
great.
was- yeah.
Can't wait for the next documentary. It'll be great.
Well, it's the 25th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Is he part of our interviews? I think you'd have to, right?
Maybe he should be. You want to reach out?
Yeah, I haven't talked to him in a while, but sure. Say, hey, remember that day when you told us that you were
No,
down?
throw it as like a trivia question. Be like, do you know your history of 1620? Be like, this was said, and then followed by a long silence and commercials.
He's
But-
for one of the, and again,
Which host said this?
I learned a lot. It was every day was an adventure, but it was kind of fun. He did say, he goes, I really want to do a show that's like a sports show, but has the feel of Sons of Anarchy.
Wow. Oh my.
That's going to take you on a
All
trip
right.
right there.
Yeesh.
Let's just say
name's Carl Pelini.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just the Carl
I think we
Pelini
got
and JP show.
Yeah, I think we have it.
it was kind of intense. A lot of intensity.
Sons of Anarchy.
This guy, no, he's
That is beautiful.
running something.
That is beautiful.
Have a good show.
Yeah, looking forward to
Thank
it.
you. Thank you.
The crossover is powered by Everlevel Concrete Repair in Omaha at everlevelconcrete.com.
Connor Happer Show starts next.
It's the Connor Happer Show. Are we sure we want to do this?
Could you, make an announcement that we're ready?
It's the Connor Happer Show on 1620, The Zone.
Well, back again. History's longest crossover? No? Really?
No.
What's a long crossover then?
That was a long crossover.
Yes.
I believe the record is hour 10.
Whoa, boy, man, got to fill those ads then. Got to work your way back in those commercials.
Yeah. I mean, and the good thing about that is you do a long crossover, the show's over after that.
That is true.
You're pretty much just propping up the segments in between the ads.
That's fair. Going on today, Huskers obviously in practice. They began about 8:30 this morning. They will have media availability for some defensive coaches, Tony White, Rob Dvorak. So the side of the ball that everyone wants to know about, obviously. I feel like we haven't talked too much defense.
They're fine. Nothing could possibly go wrong.
You give the obligatory the defense will be good, and then you talk for 55 minutes on the offense. But I'm excited to hear what Tony White has to say. We will also have Jacob Bigelow joining us later from Huskers Illustrated, telling us a little bit more about some Husker football, some basketball, and Husker baseball. Some news came out in the past hour or so with Will Bolt now being the $500,000 man. They can rebuild Nebraska baseball, but for cheap. Nonetheless, I guess congrats over to Will Bolt. We'll talk about that later on. Wanted to hit this before we get to the next hour. Did you watch Adrian Martinez as a New York Jets? Jet?
I saw the highlight.
Saw the highlight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I saw him run up the middle for a first down.
He had a couple of good throws. He had one that was reminiscent of his Nebraska days, where he elected to run all the way to the sideline and then try to put up a throw into double coverage. But he completed this and had a really good connection, 33-yard gain on that. So I would say nonetheless, I would think that he's probably in a good spot right now to make the roster. But he is the 4th out of 5 quarterbacks currently with the Jets. Now, I haven't seen where their next cuts have came from, but it will be interesting to see what that next step is going. So to finish out his first preseason game with the Jets, 24 yards rushing, 2 first downs, 6 of 10 passing for 104 yards, and he led the game-winning drive for a 37-yard field goal. The best part for Adrian Martinez is that he received the bulk of the snaps because, Aaron Rodgers isn't going to really play. And there was another first-year quarterback that was on the roster as well that took the other half.
Peasley from Wyoming?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They wouldn't have played each other. I don't think Wyoming hasn't crossed over since Josh Allen, I don't think.
Now, here's the thing Adrian's up against. I'm on the Jets website looking at the roster. They've got a picture of the other 3 quarterbacks.
That's tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But Adrian, not cut yet. As far as today's win, I did check about an hour ago, so I don't think that he's been let go. So hopefully,
look at that, Braylon Allen.
Oh, Braylon Allen. Hope he's doing all right.
He's got a picture on the website.
I will say this: Adrian Martinez has a really good chance to make the roster. And do you know why he has a good chance to make the roster?
No, I don't.
So their Saturday game, their next preseason contest, is against the Carolina Panthers. That was good. You've been practicing that.
I don't have a lot of skills, but that is one of them.
That was a very good one. So you're guaranteed to have a pretty good statistical game.
Okay.
And as long as you can showcase that you did it against an NFL team, I think he's got a good set. I think he's got a good stance. But
and there's always the chance of, hey, maybe the Jets cut you, but somebody else sees what you did.
And he was on the Lions for an extended period of time for his first preseason. So I think that there's a good chance that 2 a.m. could actually make it into the NFL and make an active roster. Will he be a primary backup? I don't think so. I think he's likely more that emergency quarterback that the NFL implemented into their new rules not too long ago. I think that that's probably his best role there. But so many people are just getting so frustrated about the Adrian Martinez experience because I think there are a lot of Husker fans that are still so they're just so confused as to what to call him because they don't know if he's a Husker alum. He graduated from the University of Nebraska Lincoln with his degree, but then went to Kansas State and obviously played for a season there. So is he a Nebraska alum, a K-State alum? Even in his bio, he says former Nebraska, former Kansas State Wildcat quarterback. I don't think it really matters, but if he does get a start or he does play significant minutes in an NFL game, do you think Nebraska puts him up on the Big Red in the NFL, the Pro Big Red during a game at Memorial? I feel like they would.
Yeah.
I feel like they would.
I feel like the fan base, it was never bitter.
Yeah.
When he left, it was always like,
I think everybody understood.
okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
And granted, at the time too, I don't think Nebraska knew they were getting Casey Thompson, but I think Adrian, if I remember the timeline right, Adrian had announced that he was going to transfer and leave. It was after that last Iowa game in which he didn't play, and he had the senior day send off, and everyone had kind of question marks in the air. It was a good idea for all parties that he kind of moved on. I think the thing that's so interesting too is how will he be remembered down the line? We talked about Zach Taylor in the crossover. Joe Gans, followed him. I would argue that more people probably have more fond memories of Joe Gans than Zach Taylor, but they remember Zach Taylor as like a good quarterback, but they don't necessarily relate Zach Taylor because of maybe the lack of success in which they felt. Whereas when Joe Gans was playing, it was the rise up. It was all that great stuff. Yada, yada. Taylor, Adrian Martinez, both of them a little bit more mixed, muddled in their results because of expectations. And I think it's a good practice here for Husker fans. If you're going to have Dylan Raiola for the next 3 years, you always have to make sure, got to keep a lookout and be ready to know you got to be easy. Got to be easy on this sort of stuff. But I think Adrian has a good chance again of making an NFL roster. We'll see when it comes to the final cuts. I still think that he's probably best emergency quarterback when it comes to the professional football league. And maybe he'll just continue to dominate spring leagues and he can enjoy his football tenure that way. I don't think he's going to retire any soon, a la Tommy Armstrong. But,
no, he's the defending UFL MVP.
Yep, and championship quarterback.
Yeah.
You can keep winning trophies from Tom Brady. That's not bad.
That's right.
If Adrian Martinez becomes the Tom Brady of the UFL, it's a pretty good career, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, pretty good career.
You
I think
would
he'd
take that.
And every fall, every summer, he gets maybe another NFL try.
Yeah.
Eventually, something will break, right? Eventually, something will come for him that he will, maybe not a start, but he could at least be a backup later on. And who knows? Maybe it's after he doesn't rely on his legs so much. That's what Aaron Rodgers told him. Aaron Rodgers said, you got to stop running. So, we'll see.
Aaron would know.
Yep. Aaron's so good at not getting hurt.
Gives great advice on many, many topics.
I wonder what health insurance plan they have. Do you think they share the same one?
I bet Aaron's got a special one.
I bet he does. All right, coming up next hour, we'll be resetting the preseason top 25. Wanted to talk on this because the AP top 25 did come out. I've got preseason surprises and your shouldn't surprise you names to watch. We'll talk a little more Will Bolt being extended. Allan Bell's going to join us at 11:30, and then Odd News with Odd Sun as well. That's all coming up. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com, and zonetv.live.
let's get back to the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
11 o'clock hour here in Omaha. 73 degrees outside. Fog. A little cloudy. A little gloomy and humid. Very thick out there. Apologies to anyone who is trying to do any lawn mowing or lawn care past couple of days, because you have not been able to get as much done as you've wanted to. Because I'm sure that's what everyone's so worried about.
Well, this audience definitely is a yard-centric lot.
Yeah. So I've seen you and Connor have done a great job of trying to make sure that people are taking care of their landscapes.
Yeah, it's important. It's a passion project of ours, and we just want everyone to have a good gas mow or a good once over with the lib machine, whatever you prefer. No judgment.
The lib machine, yes, indeed. People forget. Okay, so top 25 came out yesterday. I'm sure you covered it extensively, as much as you could have. It came out like halfway through the day, so maybe Josh got a hold of it late.
Yeah, we brought it up.
Yeah. I wanted to take like a deeper look into it because I always have I understand how the top 25 is rated with the AP polls. It's you want the top 25 best teams, and we have this weird obsession with making sure that we're putting the best teams in the top 25. Isn't the right way to put the top 25, and maybe this is my misperception, you can tell me differently, or you can comment on the YouTube channel, on any of our chats, all that great stuff. Isn't a better perception of a top 25 rating who the top 25 should be at the end of the season? Or do you see the preseason top 25 as who these teams are as of right now? My thought is always that the top 25 should reflect what you assume would be the top 25 by the conclusion of this 2024 year. Like when we wrap up all the bowl games and everything, this is what the top 25 should look like. But it feels like everyone instead puts it as in, if all these teams lined up today, like A to Z, these would be the top 25 teams as of today.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, maybe the goal is to put them to, not that you're trying to guess who's going to be the 25 best, but who will be.
Right. And that's always the problem, because when we get to week 3 or 4, that's when everyone starts to be like, well, the top 25 doesn't know who they're voting on. Oh, why isn't this guy getting any love? Oh, this person's still not receiving any votes. Or, in Nebraska's case, back in the Scott Frost era in year 2, they dropped out of the top 25 briefly when they were preseason top 25, and then they could never work their way back in.
Right. I remember that one Auburn team that went undefeated throughout the season. Like, well, they're not in the final 2 because they started the season so low.
Right. And I don't know. I feel like when you're in season, I can completely understand when you're voting on these top 25 and you're voting on the top 25 teams as of today. And I always have beef with the top 25 ratings in season, because it never feels right. It always feels like, and even the college football playoff is very bad about this. The number one, I've always assumed it in my dumb brain when I was 8 years old to even now, that the number 1 team should beat every other team behind them, right? The number 2 team, and so on and so forth. And I know everyone always has this beef as well, that when the number 3 team loses to the number 11 team, and then the 3 bumps down to 7 and the 11 goes to 8, that doesn't make any sense. I never understood how that works. But again, I know it's all aggregate and it's all different voting methods and who gets first place votes and points and all this sort of stuff. That doesn't make any sense to me. If you've beaten a team on the field, regardless of how you beat them, shouldn't you be rated higher than the other team? That's a very slippery slope to go down. I understand.
It does usually make me laugh with, like, on a Sunday when the poll comes out and it's like, oh, hey, those 2 teams just played over the weekend, and one of them is ranked 11, and the team that won is ranked 12. Like, okay, it feels like you could have just flipped them.
Yeah.
And I feel like we could take everyone's votes and then sort of massage it.
Right, yeah.
Like, no one needs to know.
And again, that's what the college football playoff is supposed to be about. 12 teams, the best 12 teams, all that great stuff.
That's the other part. None of this matters.
Right. Because the AP top 25 has never mattered less than in the college football playoff, because the committee can just come in and just be like, we like Nebraska at 12. Like, how this Pac-12 writer, which by the way, how is there still a Pac-12 writer?
But it's just a Pac-12 writer.
Yeah.
Everyone else represents
a team or
school.
a region.
Yeah.
And he just voted. He voted Nebraska the highest rating that anyone gave them at 14.
14th in the country, baby.
So he has Nebraska just outside the college football playoff in the preseason. And he covers the Pac-12.
That's right.
You know,
let's give this person some props.
Get your job where you can, I guess, if the Pac-12 is still, paying for your paychecks and whatnot. But I hope he lives in the Pacific Northwest, because if he lives in Los Angeles, he has got a lot of travel to do for this upcoming year. Yeah, while Josh is looking for whoever gave Nebraska the 14th rating, there's obviously, we mentioned a little bit about how these top 25 ratings are not going to reflect what the top 25 will be by the end of the season. Specifically, I'm going to tell you there will be 4 teams that you can guarantee should be in this top 10 at least. Georgia, Texas, Alabama, and Ole Miss. Georgia will be a top 10 team because they have that Alabama factor now. No matter how bad Nick Saban lost a game, whether he was number 1 or number 4, Alabama was always routinely in the top 10 just because they were Alabama. They could have 2 losses, 3 losses, and they always felt like they always dropped to as low as maybe 10. But I think this past year or a couple years ago, they were like 11 or 12 at one point. But they always felt like they were in that top 10 rating. I feel like Georgia's got that benefit of the doubt now, and also if they're going to lose more than 2 games in the early stretch. So if they have 2 losses by December, they'll stay in the top 10 regardless. Texas, I feel like, is in that same boat too. They're going to get a lot of pride and prop, and as long as they don't lose in the early stretch of the season, they're going to stay in the top 10. Alabama will keep that same trend going, and Ole Miss as well. With the SEC having those teams up there, the one I have the biggest beef with is Notre Dame. If we're applying this logic that these are the top 25 teams we predict to be at the end of the season, Notre Dame always disappoints us. Notre Dame has had a couple of years. They were in the college football playoff once, but they will inevitably drop a game in which they were not supposed to early or middle September, and they will fall out of the top 10 and will be fighting their way back in the rest of the time. Maybe I'm just anti-Notre Dame, but I never trust a Notre Dame team that people will be like, oh, they're a sneaky pick this year. They're a team to watch out for. Could they compete into the top 12? They'll probably make the top 12, but they're not going to be a guaranteed top 10 team throughout the season. My biggest surprise, again, applying the logic of that these would be the top 25 teams by the end of the season, I don't understand why Penn State's number 8. I don't think Penn State has ever accomplished their top 10 goal every year. They always seem to be fitting in this spot of the lower end of the top 10, yet they are always the team with 3 losses in the Big Ten by the end of the season.
I'd push, but the one pushback I'd give you on Notre Dame this year is, boy, that's a soft ass schedule.
Yeah, that is true. But again,
sure, they start at Kyle Field, but after that, nothing of significance until November.
But you can still see, like, you can picture it in your mind, Notre Dame lining up to play Stanford or whatever their traditional game is, and they have 1 or 2 losses already, right? You can already picture it. You've seen them lose, whether it's at Kyle Field or whether it's somewhere else. They always seem to drop a game, not that they're not supposed to use that common phrase, but it's always one that, like, it's a head scratcher. Mm-hmm. You're watching the start of the 3:00 kickoff, and you just now pulled up the end of, and they just go, a shocker in Notre Dame. Yeah, I'm not surprised.
Or they'll roll through and lose by 40 in their first playoff game.
True. That's always that's a common one too. I'm not big on Florida State either being number 10. Being in a weak ACC, you probably should dominate that. And on top of that, I'm not a really big fan of any of these ACC teams. I think Clemson at 14 is a mighty reach. I'm not sure that they're going to be as competitive as they have been. We'll see if the model of Dabo Swinney is convincing enough to be able to stay competitive. And Miami at 19, I just, every year, are we going to keep doing this with Miami every year? And again, what have they done in the ACC, even in the last 5 years, to give you any type of credence that they would be? 19 is an argument, a wild argument, to be into the top 12 college football playoff field, right? I feel like 19-20 is that cusp that you are on a very weird conversation to getting in, but you're still a part of it somehow, some way. I just don't see Miami being a part of that field when we get back into the end of November. When we hit Thanksgiving, I don't think we'll be talking about Miami nor Clemson as one of the top 12 teams or having an argument to get in. Will they have some solid wins? Could they be at the bottom end of a top 25? Yeah, maybe. But I don't think that they're going to be on this wild goose chase to see if they can make up a couple of wins by the end of the season or have somebody lose dramatically so that way they can fit into the field. I did really like a couple of picks on here too. I love Missouri at 11. Amy Just of the Lincoln Journal-Star gave a really high rating of Missouri. I believe she had them at 8, which was the highest ranking for the Tigers by any of the AP poll voters. I love the trend of Missouri moving upwards in the SEC. I think everybody overlooks Missouri every year in every game, especially in that conference, because they're easy to overlook. Now, I will admit that Missouri probably has the widest gap of finishing with 1 or 2 losses to ending 4-8. I think that they could easily do both, right? But I feel like Missouri is trending in the right direction. I really like where they're going. Love Utah at 12. Utah's schedule, and I know that an argument was made on this show not too long ago about putting Utah and giving them a little bit more love. They have a very, very favorable schedule outside of a couple of big matchups in their middle stretch. Southern Utah, Baylor, at Utah State, at Oklahoma State, and Arizona at home. So the week 3, 4, and 5 at Utah State, at Oklahoma State, a top 25 game, and then at home against Arizona. Those are your 3 defining games of the middle stretch of the season. And then from there, you really move forward, and Utah has everything going for them other than maybe a late trip up against Iowa State at home at the end of November and a trip to Central Florida to end the year. But if you're Utah and you're playing in Central Florida on November 29th, you got to feel pretty good about that. I think that they would be willing to get out of there.
Definitely.
I think the last team that I love that I don't think got a lot of representation was Kansas. And it's the Rutgers effect with the Jayhawks. They're number 22 in the AP poll. They currently, looking at their schedule, they have 1 game of a top 25 matchup against number 18 Kansas State in Manhattan, a rivalry game on October 26th. As of now, no preseason top 25 games outside of that matchup with Kansas State. Kansas could easily pull a 2007 and go 12-0 here. I think that it's the same logic we've been applying to Rutgers, that Rutgers has such a soft schedule that Kansas could easily walk through. And even the games that could trip them up, they have at a pretty decent time. Houston's a decent team. They get them at home on October 19th. They have TCU at home at the end of September. I don't love traveling to West Virginia on September 21st. They also get Iowa State at home on November 9th for Farmageddon. I think that these are all solid games and matchups. Oh, and don't forget, sorry, I should add this. Yeah, they play Colorado at home their second to last week of the year.
They're coming.
Keep
your quarterback healthy.
Yeah.
Got a good shot at winning all those, right?
And Kansas is such just a solid team that as long as they can, they're not going to win games dramatically. They're not going to win a game 34-33 with a walk-off field goal. They should win a game really 21-17 or 21-14, 30-20. Like they're not going to have these expansive, explosive wins, but they're going to put a couple of good wins together. And I think later in the season, people will start to be talking about Kansas 9-0, 10-0, and they'll probably stick around. They're already 22. How quickly they move up is, I think, more determined on where their big win comes. Because if they can beat Kansas State and they're undefeated up to that point at the end of October, you then play Iowa State at home November 9th. Kansas could be top 5.
Well coached. Lot to like there about Kansas.
And feels solid. Mm-hmm. Iowa at 25th, I think, is just kind of a throwaway vote. I'm not high on USC. I'm shocked that they're 23rd. I would have rather seen probably Iowa State. I actually really like Iowa State. I would have rather seen Iowa State be in one of those top 25 spots rather than the Trojans.
They were receiving a lot of votes.
They did get 33, so technically they were rated 31st, if you wanted to go that far. Nebraska would have been mid-30s with 16 total votes, just ahead of Wisconsin with 15 total. Washington had 23 total votes, which I was surprised by again, but you get the West Coast voters are going to probably root for some of the teams that they've seen before. I don't know. I think it's set up well for Nebraska to receive a little bit more love as the season goes on, but also for these contenders to maybe stay within those ranks. I'll give a quick preview later on in the show. I do want to give you a guideline to making the CFP. So I looked through the last 10 years of college football playoff finalists and resumes, and I found a formula that actually comes with some of those fringe teams that jumped another team, or maybe were an unexpected team that came into the college football playoff in the final weeks. So we'll go through that later on in the show too. But what did you have for this top 25? Were there any teams that really stood out to you, or is there anyone in the chat talking about one of the teams that is giving maybe a couple of head scratchers there?
I'm always very intrigued when we begin the season high on Missouri, because it doesn't always pan out. Like I always like realizing halfway through the season that, oh, hey, did you know Missouri's ranked 15th in the country?
Yes, that's fair.
That's the Missouri team I like. When you heap expectations on them at the beginning of the season, I think Missouri has a tendency to not live up to them.
Right.
For whatever reason.
I think of all these teams that feel the most solid within the top 5, for whatever reason, Ohio State, Oregon feel very, very solid. They have their midseason matchup, but you really feel like it's their season to control. That whoever loses that game, it's not going to really detriment your season. You just can't suffer then the unexpected loss, right?
Right.
Ohio State can't drop a game to an unranked Iowa. Oregon can't fall to Washington at the end of the season. You can't have an Oregon State loss, whenever that pops up. If Ohio State and Oregon, regardless of how their matchup ends up, they'll be 2 of the top 12 teams, guaranteed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, most everybody thinks that those 2 are going to play twice this year.
We did get this on Twitter from our good friend Jacob Bigelow.
Hi, Jacob.
Mentioning me directly.
Ooh.
He's coming right at me. Head-to-head doesn't work for rankings over a decent sample size. When you have so many different games and schedules factored in, you have to judge the entire body of work. Being better on a given day doesn't mean you're better or more deserving team overall. The Auburn Miracle team then shouldn't have been in the top 2 at the end of the season by rankings and all that sort of circumstance then, right? I mean, they were winning and beating all of these teams, but if you go through the entire body of work, they were barely getting by half the teams on their schedule that season. I know that was a long time ago and whatnot, but I completely understand where he's coming from. That argument makes complete sense to me. It's just, again, my dumb brain when I wake up on Sunday morning, and the example you just said, when I watched, the college football game of the week on that big noon kickoff, and Ohio State beat Oregon, but yet Oregon had lost to Oregon State earlier in the year, and so Oregon is number 4 and Ohio State is 5. That never made any sense to me. That was always a little bit goofy.
Just silly, not necessarily anything wrong with the sport.
No, absolutely not. But again, it's just my dumb brain. I just have to rewire it a little bit and make sure that I just, it's one of those things. It's so frustrating. And it's always the Facebook comment people that are always like, I don't understand. Why is this the way it is? But yeah. Are you under the impression that Nebraska is how many wins away from being in the top 25? Do you feel like you could predict as to what part of the season that they'll break through if they start? You want to play this hypothetical?
I like this game. Let's see.
You have to balance 2 things, right? It's a matter of who falls out and who jumps in.
Yeah.
I think in this scenario, you can kind of look at the bottom end of the top 25. Who could have an early loss? Iowa's won a lot of those Cyhawk matchups. But if they lose to Iowa State week 2, you'd have to think Nebraska beating Colorado at home in that second week, that's going to put them in the top 25. That is the first hurdle. If everybody else kind of stays put, there aren't significant losses or drops, nobody's 0-2 on the top 20 bottom half there. Nebraska beating Colorado at home on prime time, Saturday Night Football, Sunday morning rolls around, Nebraska's probably 25th, 24th.
I am going to roll the dice. I'm going to go a little more conservative on an estimate than you and say if Nebraska's 4-0, that's when they'll get a number next to their name.
I like that too. I think if to me, that's an assumption that everything else is working out the way it's supposed to, right? And obviously, one of the bigger ones here as well is Texas A&M being at 20. They have a big matchup, as we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That if they lose, do they fall out right away and somebody kind of bumps up in front of them? And the other teams receiving votes, Louisville, Virginia Tech, Boise State, SMU, Iowa State, Liberty, Washington, West Virginia, Memphis, Nebraska. At that point, the preseason votes don't matter. It's just how significant was your most previous win. And I will go back to that week 2 game because don't forget, Colorado was a top 25 team after they were a nobody the entire season prior, and then had convinced America that by beating TCU, the national runner-up the year before, with a completely new team, revamped, they were a top 25 team the very next week. And then, of course, they rose a little further when they beat Nebraska, and they rose a little bit further when they beat Colorado State, and then it all fell apart after that. I feel like people will jump the shark early for Nebraska if they can get that win against Colorado in week 2. Already receiving a couple of votes. You have the Pac-12 voting you number 14. These are all good things. And who knows, maybe the hate against Colorado would force people to really put Nebraska up another echelon. Just one more notch above, right?
Winning a marquee matchup can definitely do a little something for you in your resume, for sure.
And shout out to our lone Colorado voter. May God have mercy on your soul.
Maybe they see something.
Sure. Whatever they're seeing, I'm not sure.
They believe.
I'll throw this one in there too. I mentioned I'm not big on Clemson. I'd watch out for Tennessee. I think Tennessee at 15 is a great spot to be.
Their early part of the schedule, their quarterback with a name that is not pronounceable by the human tongue is going to put up video game numbers.
Yep, they're going to fly up.
And those Tennessee fans are going to, why isn't our quarterback up for the Heisman in week 4?
Yep. And Tennessee will climb and climb and climb, but then after they hit that midpoint of the SEC schedule, wait to find out.
We'll see.
Especially that third weekend in October. They are going to be very interesting there down in Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, coming up, Connor Happer Show 1620 The Zone. We're going to talk a little bit more with Allan Bell. AB from Driving the Line is going to join us, telling us some best value for Big Ten teams, college football, and more best value for those NFL teams. So that way you can put $1 back in your pocket. That's coming up next. Connor Happer Show 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com.
comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Allan Bell, the AB3, on the Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
1620 The Zone. Austin Jacobsen back in for Connor Happer today. And at 11:29, we've got AB joining us from Driving the Line. Allan Bell, how you doing today?
Big dog, what's good, brother? You doing all right?
Oh, I'm doing okay. It's a bit humid out here, and it's stuffy here in the studio. But it's great to be talking with you because we're trying to stuff our pockets and get ready for the college football season. So I had a couple of CFB, whatever you want to go with, the acronym you choose, for how to find the best value in college football this season. You ready?
I'm ready. Let's let it rip. Let's go.
All right, perfect. So obviously being in Big Ten country out here, there's a lot of different win-loss values that you could go with. There's different ways that you could look at the Big Ten conference in general. I was curious if you've taken a look at the Big Ten conference and what could be a good value for people who maybe are trying to look for a big swing when they're betting on specific Big Ten teams.
Yeah, so all right, so it depends on what you're looking for, right? So there's going to be different ways to go about it. Okay, so when you look at wins, all right, like just total, wins in the regular season, right? Like your blue blood teams are going to be really high up there, right? 10.5. You're going to see, for teams that are favored to win the national championship. So it's tough to go that route because there's so much risk that could happen, right? So I like going, in regards to, futures of making the playoffs, which now obviously there's going to be so many, more teams that make it. But, if you're looking at, like at Ohio State, like I would look more towards the playoffs than I would, just regular season wins. But when you're looking at teams that could have, a tough year, and what I mean by that is like, say, Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, all right, you can look at them at over 3.5 conference wins, all right? Or you can look at it under 3.5. Under is juiced to -165. The books feel that they're probably not going to get there. But what I mean by that is going through the list and finding teams. Illinois is a good team. I think that you could take over 3.5 wins in terms of, Big Ten wins at +120. I think that's a team that could do a little damage and keeping that obviously in perspective, right? For, what that is going to be. Michigan State, over 2.5 conference wins is at -130. Wisconsin, 4.5, right? So you can find teams in regards to just their Big Ten play. But if you're looking at teams that are going to be pretty darn good, I would look at making the playoffs type of a bet because now you've got so many more options to do so.
And you talk a little bit about the heavy hitters in the Big Ten with Ohio State, Oregon, some of those guys, the national contenders. When you're looking at just the landscape of college football, are there conferences that make you a little bit more nervous to get involved with when it comes to putting your dollars down on them? Is there a specific conference that you're just a little bit more hesitant on because of maybe the fluidity of the field?
Yes, absolutely. All right, so the Big Ten and the SEC, no concerns whatsoever. There's going to be a lot of good football teams. But you look at the Big 12, all right? Like, how is that going to look? Oklahoma and Texas are now gone, right? Like, I feel like a team like Oklahoma State is a good team to bet on. Kansas State, right? Can they continue it, right? The books are, really, really high on Kansas State this year, rightly so. I mean, they're a good football team, right? But, it's just going to change the landscape of a lot of these games and these rivalries, right? So, them and the ACC, like I worry if there are going to be some big teams that fall off, like a Clemson, right? Like I just haven't felt the juice behind Clemson as of late, and I know that Dabo Swinney has been behind in regards to NIL and all that kind of stuff, but that absolutely affects recruiting, right? So those, I'm a little hesitant because there's risk. I'll also say, like the Big Ten, I'm not concerned about it at all. But the new team to the Big Ten, right? Like you look at like Southern California has a crazy schedule this year. I think that I'm all over going under on teams like that because I think that this year could be brutal for them.
When you look at some of the awards that can come in college football too, I'm sure that there are some great numbers for some of those Heisman Trophy values as well. And when talking best value, is there any name that kind of sticks out the most to you that you could definitely put something in now and feel comfortable about it when you hit week 8, week 9, week 10 of the college football season?
Yeah. So when you look at the Heisman, obviously you're going to want to look to the quarterback position, right? And you're going to want to find a team that's probably pretty good because that generally plays into it, right? So, you look at let's say, Ohio State, like Oregon and Dylan Gabriel, right? Like you're going to look to something like that. You're going to look Georgia, a Carson Beck. And I'll tell you this, right? Like keep going down the list. There's a lot of them, right? Alabama quarterback Jalen Milroe, Ohio State's going to have a couple dudes that are on there, beyond the quarterback position. But, finding those guys that are really the leader of said teams that are going to be up there, Texas and Quinn Ewers, right? Like those guys are going to have all the options in the world to win it. I would say if anybody uses DraftKings, all right, you can find not only like the awards like Heisman, whatever, but you can actually combine the double winner of a national championship and the Heisman Trophy. But it sounds risky, but here's the thing. I'll give you a perfect example. The biggest favorite would be Georgia winning the national championship and Carson Beck winning the Heisman. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that's your favorite, and it's at plus 2,000, okay? Meaning that you could take that, you could take Oregon and Dylan Gabriel to plus 3,500. You could combine 10 of these, right? Bet 10 of them, and now if any of them happen, they're all guaranteed profit because the juice is so high in your favor. So that's what you want to look at, man, is finding ways to use the book's numbers against them and give yourself a little bit of betting insurance, which is tough to find, you know what I mean?
Allan Bell joining us today on the Connor Happer Show, telling us how we can make a little money this football season. I want to throw the same question over to you, but for the NFL. Best value, we talked about it last week. The Carolina Panthers at 5.5 wins currently set. I'm hammering the under there. That feels like a great value and almost free money. Is there anything maybe on that same sense with other NFL teams that you're kind of watching in terms of win and loss?
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so first off, I completely agree with you on the Carolina Panthers, right? Like, I'm not against Dave Canales or Bryce Young. I like them, but, I mean, just look at the roster. There's just not talent, throughout that team. I'm very, very concerned about them. If Bryce Young goes down, yeah, they have Andy Dalton, but, I mean, it's Andy Dalton, right? I like the under on that one. I'll say this, the Los Angeles Rams, all right, their number is set at 8.5. I like the under in that one. I feel like the head coach, Sean McVay, kind of has a foot out the door. He's ready to kind of go, to the broadcast side of things and make more money doing it. We've already heard those rumors for 2 years. There's no more Aaron Donald. Matthew Stafford's getting older. And if anything happens to Cooper Kupp, bye-bye, right? So I like the under there. I'll tell you this, one that I like the over on, the 49ers over 11.5 wins. You're going to see the market go heavy for the under there, and I get it. 12 wins or more is tough. But I think that the 49ers understand exactly what time it is. And you got a division out in the NFC West that is very winnable with the Rams, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks. They can, really gain a lot of wins out there. Yeah, man, like I like the over there. I like the under with the Rams for sure.
You talked a little NFC West, NFC South. Those two divisions have felt up for grabs over the past couple of years. Of course, the 49ers have done a good job controlling it the past 2 or 3. Are there maybe some of those divisions in the NFL that are a bit too unpredictable to try to put money down for a division winner this early?
So, okay, yeah. All right. So I think what could be arguably the toughest division would be the AFC North, right? Because, yeah, the Ravens are going to be your favorite there. But you got the Steelers, who are always just they're going to be there. Mike Tomlin is that good of a coach. I think that the Browns are going to be better than people give them credit for, and I think the Bengals are going to be better, obviously with Joe Burrow, and if he can remain healthy through the year. So you've got some risk there, even though I do like Baltimore. You look at the AFC South. Like, what in the world do we do? And look, I'm here in Nashville, right? Like, the Titans aren't going to be that good. The Texans exploded last year, but do they do it again? Right? The Jaguars were down last year, but I think that they take a step forward. I like Trevor Lawrence. I like Doug Peterson. He's a heck of a coach and a really good locker room guy. Yeah, like I would pay attention to if everyone starts hammering on the Texans, you might take a look at the Jaguars because, yeah, like the same thing happened to the Jaguars 2 years ago. They were really good and then took a step back, right? Like I would keep an eye there. That one, you might be able to find some nice value there.
And Allan, I always love this time of year because I have too much time on my hands. I'm looking through the schedules. I'm looking through college football. I'm already previewing NBA. I'm looking at every single sport that's possible. Is it too soon to really put together a crazy parlay across some different sports or maybe to fit some things together when it comes to college football or the NFL? Do I have too much time on my hands, or is this a good time to start looking at how I can piece some together?
No, it's a great time to do it. Look, and let me say this: and like, as long as like everyone, like, because I like doing the same thing, and like, our audiences, I'm driving a line, they'll have me like, "Oh, this is not financially." I'm like, oh, hold on, like, I understand what it is, but I like to have fun betting too. And if you're ever going to do it, now's the time to do it because before season start, you're going to get really good, numbers on that one, right? So it's like you could do one of, we all see on Twitter like, the dude who has like all four teams to, in major pro sports, like to win the title, like you can throw a little bit on that. Like now's the time to do it, but you can also kind of be smart with it too. And you can play some of, a team to make the college football playoff, a team, to win the AFC, a team to win the NFC, etc. And you can really rack up money because now once the season starts, all those odds, they go all the way down.
And of course, looking at those parlays too, do you have a favorite one right now? You mentioned a little bit ago about going Carson Beck and Georgia national championship with a Heisman Trophy. Is there another one that sticks out the most to you? And maybe it's across sports, an NFL division champ and a conference champion. What's one that you're kind of high on as we sit a few weeks away from the start of the NFL and college football seasons?
I'm going to say this. I am very high on the San Francisco 49ers. I think that they're going to have every opportunity to get back to the Super Bowl. Now, I understand, it's tough getting yourself back in that mindset, but I really like Kyle Shanahan. And look at the talent that team has. They have it in spades. And, seeing the Chiefs, like, this is not a negative on them. How much are they, like, how many times are they going to do it? You know what I mean? So, I'm big on the 49ers this year. It doesn't mean you have to take them to win the Super Bowl, but taking them to win the division and then win the NFC, like, that's a solid bet right there that you could make money on.
All right, Allan, last question for you before we let you go. Give me a bet for the day. Give me something to put some money down if I'm looking to put something back in my pocket.
Yeah, the New York Mets, all right? They're facing the Oakland A's. The Mets are at home. They're rested. The A's are throwing Ross Stripling, who we have picked on all year long. Seems like a nice guy, not a good major league pitcher. He's going to give up runs. I'm taking the Mets team total over 4.5 at plus money. But if you want to just, mess around with the Mets in a lot of different ways today, whether it's, their team total, them on the money line, them on the run line, play the Mets. Pete Alonso for a home run as well. Very nice. The Mets should put up a lot of runs.
All right, perfect, Allan. Appreciate your time as always. AB from Driving the Line joining us on the Connor Happer Show. Have a great rest of your day. Looking forward to hearing from you next and knowing what our next best value could be.
I look forward to it, brother. Appreciate you having me, man. Thank you.
All right, that was Allan Bell Driving the Line joining us. Coming up next, Odd News with Odd Son, right here on the Connor Happer Show, 1620thezone.com, zonetv.live.
And now we've reached the point in the show where Josh Odson reads the peculiar, the bizarre, the comical, the odd news with Odd Son. Odd news, Odd Son. See what we did there? The odd news with Oddson.
Welcome back. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone. Odd news with Odd Son. What do we got? Producer Josh.
Hello. How we doing?
Doing all right.
We begin with baseball. I know it's not your preferred sport.
Oh, I'll adapt,
but
overcome.
Yeah. I mean, Mookie Betts. You're familiar with Mookie Betts? Yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The Dodger superstar recently returned from injury, and he's part of that is going on the road with the team now.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to Milwaukee, if you prefer. And there's a hotel that a lot of baseball teams stay at in Milwaukee, the Pfister Hotel. Many stay there because maybe it's haunted.
Oh.
And,
okay.
That's kind of entertaining for the players who are kind of stuck in the hotel because it's Milwaukee. You're not going to go out and see Milwaukee.
Well, famously, as James Harden has said, Milwaukee, not a great place for clubs.
Yeah. Feels like a market shortfall. That we could start a club in Milwaukee.
No oxygen bars in Milwaukee. Yeah.
But Mookie Betts has said, no, thank you. I will not be staying in a haunted hotel. The beautiful downtown Pfister Hotel in Milwaukee was built in 1893, and local legends claim it is haunted. In fact, players for other franchises claim to have experienced ghost encounters, and Mookie Betts wants no part of it. The 8-time All-Star will instead be staying at an Airbnb for the second straight year to avoid potential encounters with spirits from the beyond. He says he will never change his ways on this. He has stayed at the Pfister before and claims he never encountered anything paranormal, but says he couldn't sleep because he was too scared. So, he's Mookie Betts. He's an important player. He needs his rest, so he's going to stay at an Airbnb instead.
I'm surprised they're letting him do this at all. They're usually pretty strict on where you can be, where you can go, all that sort of stuff. And whether or not the real story is the fact that he does not want to be at a haunted hotel called the Pfister is a different story all in itself. But listen, he is Mookie Betts. He's an important piece of the puzzle, so you got to let him do what he needs to do. Now, if some guy that just got called up who was trying to do this, it wouldn't work out. He also probably couldn't afford the Airbnb in Milwaukee.
But also, doesn't Mookie Betts have enough pull with the team to where the team?
Yeah, you're right.
The team would be like, "Hey, Mookie doesn't want to stay at the Pfister, so we're not going to stay at the Pfister. We're going to go to the Best Western.
Yeah,
we're going to go to the Fairfield Inn and Suites or something.
The Best Western in Tokyo. Best ones, best ones. You would think so, but also, how early do they have to book those type of hotel rooms?
I mean, I feel like it's probably one fail swoop in spring training.
Yeah, right. So they probably just have one person who just sits on the phone all of April and May and just makes all these calls for their August, their September and October places that they need to play at.
I would think so.
But then you have to think that they also have these contracted hotels, right?
There's an official hotel with Major League Baseball.
Like when they do these the postseason, you can't plan those in advance. You don't know where you're going, allegedly. But it could be one of those things where can't the MLB just be like, no, you stay at these hotels all the time? Like, why are they choosing this specific hotel? It also seems just like a bad idea to stay at a previously haunted hotel. Just for the vibe.
Yeah, just as a goof, something to do.
Yeah, I stand with Mookie on this one. I too would not stay at the Pfister.
I also agree.
Yeah.
We go to the Olympics. Couple stories trickling out still from Paris. Did you watch Breaking over the weekend?
I did not. It does keep popping up on my Netflix recommend.
Oh, well, personally, I would like to never, ever see Ray Gunn again. I'm tired of seeing this person. She's not funny. The meme is stupid. Like, I'm over it. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, get this person off of my computer screen.
Yeah. We're giving her a little bit too much credit for someone who didn't receive a point in the sport in which they represented.
That's right.
She's writing a thesis, though.
And never will receive a point.
No.
In the Olympics.
Why is that?
It has been announced that breaking sadly will not return to the Olympics in 2028 and going forward.
Will Australia put her instead on the flag football team for 2028?
That is entirely possible. The IOC added breaking, more commonly known as breakdancing, to the sports program in Paris because IOC President Thomas Bach and his colleagues thought it would attract younger, social media savvy viewers that they were seeking.
TikTok dancers. That's
Right.
what just say TikTok dancers.
Yeah.
Just don't try to hide it.
And tell me what you think of this sentence. It also fit in with local organizers' broader goal of a more urban Olympic Games. Don't love that.
Yeah. Well, there are other ways you could have said that. Or better yet, just say we wanted to grow the game. That always seems to get people.
Right.
Just say grow the game.
Even from the start, breaking was viewed as more of a novelty than a new sport with staying power. A sport is usually not considered a core part of the Olympic program until it is part of at least 3 consecutive games, which sadly breaking will not be. Organizers for the Summer Games in LA in 2028 had the ability to propose new sports they wanted to include in their games, and they opted for, things people play and do and know, like flag football, cricket, lacrosse, and squash over breaking. Despite the dance's deep history of the United States, specifically the Bronx, which is almost as far away from Los Angeles as you can geographically be, while still being in the United States.
Good for them. Well, there are no Alaskan break dancers coming through the pipeline here.
That we know of.
Yeah. Guess we'll never find out now.
Yeah. Many of the B-boys and B-girls are sad
the B-boys
by this news.
That is tough.
It was weird that even the commentators for the breaking event were B-boy Vince. And,
they were also
B-boy Rick.
They were silent for 90% of that too.
Yeah.
Like watching it live, they had no commentary to say. Like I had no contextual idea if someone was doing good or bad except for Reagan. I knew it was bad.
But they would say at the end of it, like, that's a gold medal run.
Yep.
And I go, why? You have to tell me why. This isn't like floor exercise where I've seen this product enough to where I know, like, okay, that was good, that was bad. I have no idea what I'm looking at. You have to tell me.
I also heard one of them say, ooh, that's a tough point deduction. For what? Tell me for what? For who? Yeah, it was
you have to hold my hand a little bit.
Yes, please. I mean, it's like when we drop flag football gold medals on everyone in 2028, I hope that everyone else's NBC channel for other countries teaches and grows the game of football a little bit more.
A little bit. Finally, we ended Nashville, and I guess oversight on our part by not asking Nashville's own Allan Bell about this.
Ooh, that's my bad.
Well, I didn't think of it. I often think of Allan Bell as a global entity.
Yeah, but he's a tighten up guy.
Yeah. Tennessee Titans quarterback Will Levis, passionate about many things, football, and putting mayonnaise in his coffee, even though he says that was just a goof, guys. It was just a goof. I don't really do that.
I don't know. It seems like he does it.
Seems like you do.
Yeah. It's okay to be weird.
Yeah. A new perfume has once again hit the market involving Will Levis. He is the pitch man for number 8 Parfum de Mayonnaise.
Nope. Hate the name. Hate the name.
Yeah. I don't like any part of this. And also, I can't tell if this is a real product or a fake product.
I think it's real.
Feels like a fake product.
I don't know.
But boy, they're sure acting like it's real.
Well, do you know where they're exclusively selling it at?
I don't.
Casey's gas stations.
Really?
No.
Oh, okay.
But that fits the market, doesn't it?
That would.
Who wouldn't want to smell like mayonnaise?
It is Hellman's brand perfume that allegedly smells like mayonnaise. This was all set in motion because Levis, like a middle schooler desperate for attention in the lunchroom, revealed that he puts I'm just reading the article.
Okay.
Revealed that well-written article.
Yeah,
revealed that he puts mayo in his coffee among other unusual dietary predilections.
Oh wow, what a word.
Yeah.
To put into a mayo story.
Like he eats the banana without peeling it. Will Levis might be a garbage person.
Yeah, he might. He might just be Oscar the Grouch. Yeah, that could just be. He could be the antithesis of just a trash can. a garbage disposal.
Yeah, maybe he had long COVID or something and can't taste anything, and he thought, it'd be funny. Watch me mess with these people.
Also,
I'll just put anything in there. It doesn't matter.
Super weird timing for a dude who might not have a starting quarterback job next season.
Oh, I think that's why you do it now, right?
You think?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's no endorsement opportunities next
That is
year
true.
if I'm benched or cut or whatever.
You're right. Be the Hellman's guy as long as you can be the Hellman's guy.
Absolutely.
I support that. Get your money how you can if you can't have it forever.
Now, many people on many sides of this issue, I don't care whether you think it's a great idea, bad idea. This is what I want you to do. I want you to find this story on Twitter, and I want you to send it to John Bishop.
Okay.
Known mayonnaise hater, John Bishop. I'm sure he's already seen it.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Not a mail boy.
I want everyone to send it to him just to trigger him.
Yep.
Welcome back from vacation. Here's a bunch of mayonnaise.
Well, you do think that his vacation had to be sponsored by mayonnaise. He went to Knoxville, Iowa.
I didn't know there was a Knoxville, Iowa until yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
The more you learn, the more you know. John Bishop, just an interesting cat.
I'm just a city slicker. I didn't know. Forgive me. But I've never claimed to be anything other than that.
Apologies to all our Knoxville, Iowa listeners. We're sorry. We'll send you a perfume bottle of mayonnaise to accommodate for our mistakes.
As an apology. An olive branch made with olive oil.
And look at this. We already got a comment from Bayman Wade. Do not tell John Bishop about this mayo and coffee thing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he's aware. Because when you hate something so much, like John Bishop hates mayonnaise, you tend to find the mayo-related stories.
Yep.
You tend to find the things that you so venomously hate.
Yeah, the things that you try to run away from always find a way to get back to you.
Right.
That's how it works. That's how it works. Any more? That all we got?
That's the odd news.
All right. Odd news with Odd Son. Appreciate it. Great stuff. Send your mayo tweets to John Bishop if you possibly can. That'd be great. We'd appreciate that. Coming up, we're going to give you a guideline on how to make the college football playoff in case your favorite team is on the fringe. And we'll have Jacob Bigelow of Huskers Illustrated joining us. Then some more lunch quick bites at the end of the hour. That's next, coming up right after this on the Connor Happer Show, 1620thezone.com. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone. Austin Jacobsen in once again for another edition. Hap is back next week, though. August 19th. The return of the Connor Happer. Good to have him back in, I'm sure. I'm sure that you're very much excited to get back to just some normalcy in your life, aren't you? This rotating door of new people, new and exciting folks.
Just really excited to turn my brain off.
Yeah.
And just
have somebody else run the show.
You do whatever you want, Connor.
Yep.
I'm going to be over here.
Are you going to take a leave of absence in his first week back? So that way you can teach him a lesson?
No, I'm taking a leave the second week.
Okay,
so
perfect. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, get back to normal and then take a break before football season.
All right, you're back. We're good. I'll see you later.
Yep, that's the way to do it. You got to get back at some people that way. So, again, appreciate Connor for giving me a chance to be on. Looking forward to seeing how this will all turn out. We talked earlier in the show about the AP Top 25 and how those votes went down. During that look through the AP Top 25, the thought scrubbed my brain yesterday. And I started to think about the premise of the Top 25. Does it relate to the postseason, how you predict these seasons will go, all that stuff. And of course, the expansion of the college football playoff, the top 12, the conversation of how you go from 3, 4, 5, and 6, how those teams match up with each other comparative to now we have to look at 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, maybe 16 team, that little range to see who's going to make it in, who's not going to be in, all that great stuff. During this thought experiment, I actually came upon a couple of different stats as to the selection committee's process and how they selected fringe teams, specifically which teams that they had jump over another team so that way they could have a more successful college football playoff 4-team field. Now, if that doesn't make any sense to you, basically it takes it down to this. What do you need to have at the end of the season to be able to jump another team into the college football playoff? What's the criteria for your team to make the CFP? So
More viewers than Florida State.
Yes, well, and a quarterback. That also helps too.
Yeah.
So from 2015 to 2024, the college football playoff granted us different champions: Alabama, Georgia, Clemson amongst the usual suspects. Of course, a one-off Ohio State, another one-off LSU championship, and then, of course, Michigan last season. There wasn't a whole lot of people getting too upset over the past few years, but of course, if you remember those first couple of years, the very first year was one of the most controversial, where you had Oregon and Florida State, Ohio State and Alabama, in which Ohio State jumped over a Big 12 tied champion of TCU. TCU had proved later that they probably should have been in the field, but Ohio State won the championship. So the College Football Playoff Committee felt pretty good. Felt like they got it right. As Ezekiel Elliott ran around the field with half of a shirt on. People forget Ezekiel Elliott was in college a very, very long time ago.
I have kind of scrubbed that from my brain. Yes.
For the next few years, of course, there were more conversations about who needed to be in the field. How do you determine? And they always said the same framework, right? What's the phrase that we've heard so many times from the College Football Playoff Committee? The best 4 teams. The best 4 teams. We want the best 4 teams. And last season, I think we did see the best 4 teams outside of the Florida State game, in which all their team decided to leave to play a national champion, Georgia. Michigan, Alabama, Washington, and Texas all gave us very similar matchups and similar vibes to the game. They were competitive. Everyone felt like each team deserved to be there. And the biggest blowout was actually the national championship game itself, in which Washington just kind of got run over and run on by Michigan. So if you're looking through the past couple of years of teams that got into the college football playoff and potentially had to jump over another team to get there, what are the keys maybe to being that fringe team here at the end of the season? Now, I think that this parameter will not sustain when we get to 12, 13, 14, 15, those rankings by the end of the season, because you do have the automatic qualifiers for conferences. You also have the ability of a team to get hot late, to have different circumstances circle them, and maybe even storylines that you could definitely tell that the College Football Playoff Committee will be like, well, what if we just do matchups? What if we look for these 12 teams to kind of bind here together? But in a perfect vacuum, in what we had seen with the 14 playoff, what does a top 12 team need by season's end to be in that college football playoff? The first thing that I came across was that you have to end your season with a winning streak and or you have to have an upset win. Many of these teams did not back themselves into the college football playoff unless it was already guaranteed that they were in, a la TCU. TCU was already undefeated, had lost to Kansas State in the Big 12 championship game, but they felt very secure about the fact that they were already guaranteed a spot in because of the way that they had won the season. Now, no, did they not win their last game of the year? But they had a couple of the other factors that we'll talk about here in just a little bit. If you think of that Ohio State team, they lost all their quarterbacks, but what was their most important game of the season? Blowing out Wisconsin in that Big Ten title game. Because of the way that they won the game, the committee handed them a chance to be able to grant them into the college football playoff. And at the end of the day, the committee really has their decision already made. But if a team gives them a chance to make an argument, that team has a great opportunity to do it. I guarantee Ohio State was one of the few teams that the college football playoff committee in that 2015 year was really considering putting in. They just needed the statement of approval to say, wow, they blew out Wisconsin in that Big Ten title game, and it showcased how good they could be on the national stage. Obviously, Cardale Jones did his thing after that. This is kind of a curious one. It goes back to the TCU one. But to be a top 12 team by the season's end, don't play in your conference championship game. The less people see of you, the better off you are, unless you are unbeaten. If you're unbeaten, you will be in your conference championship game. At that point, it does not matter. You're in regardless. There's not going to be many circumstances in which a Power 4 conference team will be undefeated going into a conference championship game in which they will be forced to play, will have nothing to gain except for a ring on their finger or a banner at their stadium. They will be guaranteed into the college football playoff. And in fact, I wouldn't doubt that we will get to a point in college football in which some coaches would say, we're good not having a conference title. We're looking for a national championship. So unless it affects their seeding dramatically, I could see a top 10 team feeling okay about not having to win. Now, again, I don't foresee many circumstances in which, let's just use let's say Iowa has a big upcoming season and they're undefeated at number 8.
Congrats, Iowa.
You have to feel pretty comfortable if you're number 8, that if you lose your conference championship game, as long as who you're facing, again, the top 2 teams in the conference in the Big Ten, you're going to play a competent opponent. You're not going to drop from 8 to 13. So if you're unbeaten at number 8, you feel pretty good about the fact that you will be there at the end. So the conference championship game is a wash. But if you're a team with 2 losses, you do not want to be in that conference championship game. If you're at 1 loss, you don't want to be in the conference championship game because it's just another way that people can pick and prod your team. Because if you win by a field goal or some fluky win, it's going to really affect the way people will view your team. And especially the College Football Playoff Committee, they are very hesitant on teams that they have seen too much of. The more they see of your team, the worse it gets. Think Florida State last year. There were too many other factors circling Florida State. They couldn't prove that they were a good team without their starting quarterback that late in the season. They had seen what the team looked like without. If your quarterback gets hurt earlier in the season and you can prove you're still undefeated, probably still look pretty good. This is a big factor too, and it's one you can't necessarily control, but helps you in the long run. Lose early or win late, both by dramatic fashion. So if you are a big marquee matchup in week 2, or maybe you are an unranked team that just snips you in the late end of the year, you will still get credit for the ability to make that game dramatic. They'll say, oh, the refs, the turnovers, the environment, you were on the road. Oh, it was a sleeper game. You just overlooked this team. The College Football Playoff Committee has granted one-loss teams, specifically SEC teams, a lot of leeway with one loss because of how they lost or how they won early or late in the year. Now, again, the earlier you lose, the better, because people will wash away an early loss much faster than they will grant you grievance for a late loss. But if you're going to win a dramatic game, do it at the tail end of the season, at the most pinnacle point of your year. Have a kick six, have a blocked field goal, do something crazy, make your way into the playoff. The more dramatic you are, the better off you'll be. This was the most actual statistical analysis that I could do on this one. If you like this one, if you like stats, you're going to like this. To get into the college football playoff with 4 teams, you needed to be in the top 30 of first downs and time of possession across college football.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Did not know that.
So the rest of these were a little bit, you just kind of look through the schedules, you rewind a couple of seasons, you look to see how the season laid out. But as far as I could tell, going back to 2015, every single team that made the college football playoff was in the top 30 of both first downs converted and time of possession. And
I guess those things make sense, right?
You're a winning football team if you are one of those two, right? What I think that this actually showcases even better is all the points that we've already kind of went over. The less that you see of your team, the better. So the more you control the clock, the more you're controlling the flow of the game, the better off you're going to be, right? Winning football. You're going to lose or win in dramatic fashion because if you're not making your first downs, if you're not having a lot of success, you're going to have a little bit more trouble there. And if you are a team that's going to run the football, control, and a team gets out on you quick, you're going to have a better chance for a dramatic win and a comeback victory. I think these are all things that people need to be looking at and considering when they're thinking about how their team can make the college football playoff. So stick to these power notes. You got to end your season on a winning streak and or you have to have an upset victory. You do not, if you're on the fringe, you do not want to play in your conference championship unless you're on the outside and you need a way to get in. The less we see of your team, the better. You need to lose early or win late in dramatic fashion, and you need to be in the top 30 of first downs and in time of possession. So, again, if you're a Nebraska fan, in a perfect circumstance, a perfect storm, and you look through your schedule right now, you can probably already guarantee that you are looking at the schedule and you're thinking to yourself, yeah, probably a loss to Ohio State on the road in the shoe, and maybe a loss in one of those last 4 games with UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, or Iowa. I think Nebraska has the recipe here, if everything were to work out in a perfect vacuum, a perfect circumstance, that these factors can work in their favor. Now, the last stat's the one that they've struggled the most with, converting first downs and time of possession. Feels like they've lost that many times the past few years. And especially last season, if young Dylon Raiola can make a big difference here. But you look at marquee wins. If you lose the Ohio State game at the end of October, who's going to remember that you lost to Ohio State if you rattle off 4 straight wins and USC's on the road and you win the last night game of the year on the road at Iowa? It's a pretty good 4-game winning streak to end out your regular season.
There's a chance to change some hearts and minds afterwards, for sure.
The less that we see of the team, the better. Well, granted, during the early stretch when Nebraska goes 7-0, yes, they've got a national matchup on a night game against Colorado, but then you've got a couple of afternoon snoozers, Northern Iowa and UTEP, the Illinois game on a Friday night. Not everyone's going to tune into a Friday night game nationally, necessarily. The Purdue game is your first road test. You got Rutgers at home. I don't think many people will mark that up as a national competition in that sense. Then you play at Indiana. So your biggest marquee matchup after the Colorado game, probably Ohio State. And if you falter to Ohio State, you're probably going to be on the back burner for a little bit. You'll be a top 25 team if you're 9-1 at that point, 8-1. But then the next 4 games, you have a good chance to be able to maybe lay a bit lower under the radar where people might have written you off after Ohio State. You can win your last 4 games and sneak into the top 12 there. Of course, the losing or winning in dramatic fashion can be a very big keynote. And I will add this too. Some of these schools and some of these teams that will be on the fringe when you look at those top 25 ratings in the preseason, they're going to have a tougher time being able to get their way into dramatic wins because even as good as TCU was in the year that they came back, they had that Auburn-like run in the last year of the BCS where they were doing the fire sale field goal against Baylor to knock it through. They had a couple of wild games in that sense. They just never really piqued the interest of the national market until they hit a certain point where their record showcased that. And then in their biggest marquee matchup in the Big 12 championship game, they fell flat. But they still made the college football playoff because they had some keynote victories. People were paying attention to them, and they had a national story to follow as well, riding with Sonny Dykes. Max Duggan was a lovable character. He had come back, had lost a starting job, and all these factors kind of weaving in and out. But I think that this is the formula you want to see, again, if you are a fringe team on the outside of the college football playoff. So I said a lot there. What do you think? Digest back to me. Does it sound like a relatively good formula? Obviously, you can't coach this up. Rule isn't going in saying, all right, guys, when we get to week 7 against Rutgers, we're going to try to keep it close and win on a field goal. Tristan, are you ready?
If you guys feel like dropping one, now's the time. Not later, now.
Right.
No, I think it will only prove itself to be more true with the expansion. I think you will also, but also to talk out of both sides of my mouth here,
as we do.
I think there is a path for just one absolute weirdo team to be in there every single year.
Right.
And I don't even mean the group of 5 auto bid or whatever we want to call it, but just, Missouri made the playoff one year. Texas Tech made the playoff.
Right.
One year. Just one team manages to get hot at the right time, rattle off like 8 in a row to end the year, and all of a sudden they're left standing at 10 or 11, and they get the last at-large bid. Now,
I didn't want to throw this one in there because I didn't see it as regularly as the past 10 years of the college football playoff, but this is another piece to it too. The tougher your conference is, the more leeway you get as well. And especially when you add in the fact that we will get to a point when a 3-loss team and a 4-loss team will be having a solid argument for getting in. We mentioned Tennessee earlier. There's a very good chance that Tennessee could have 3 or 4 losses, but their preseason top 15, depending on who they lost to. If their top 4 losses come against Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, or if those 3 losses right there should eliminate a lot of other teams, but how well will the College Football Playoff Committee say, well, you only lost by 7 points to Ole Miss. You only lost to Alabama by 3. You had a walk-off field goal get blocked against Georgia.
I think that's a perfect example for this year. Tennessee has a non-conference game with NC State.
Yep.
They could absolutely put that in their back pocket and say, hey, we beat NC State on this marquee preseason non-conference game. Sure, we lost at Oklahoma. Sure, we lost to Alabama. Sure, we lost to Georgia. But I mean, we beat NC State. We played, play those tough SEC teams close. And I don't know if they'll have an argument, but they'll make that argument.
Yeah.
That, hey, we're one of the 12 best teams in the country.
No, I completely agree. I think the SEC and the Big Ten, for that matter, are going to get a lot of leeway. The only difference is you have to have national prestige. Nebraska will not get that leeway this season. They will not be granted that type of grievance when it comes to your schedule.
Not going to need it because Nebraska will never lose again.
Nope. They haven't lost yet this year.
It's damn straight.
But I think it's a great point to add in that your conference prestige is going to make a solid difference into how you are perceived. And truthfully, not even who you lose to, because you even threw in Oklahoma there. Now, I apologize. I had Ole Miss on the schedule. I was looking somewhere else. But with Oklahoma, I mean, an unranked team as it is, I believe. I don't know. Maybe, did they get top 25? I think they're on there.
Yeah, Oklahoma's in there.
Yeah. But I don't think anyone would write you off if you lost to an Oklahoma team that, maybe ends this season unranked. They would just say, well, it's Oklahoma. They're in the SEC. You lost to 6-6 Oklahoma. They wouldn't write that off as a bad thing. They would just be like, well, it's the SEC. It's a tough challenge every week.
Big Ten will say, oh, it's Oklahoma's having a down year. You can't come at me with Oklahoma. And SEC fans will say, but it's the SEC. They were adjusting to the new conference. You got to allow a grace period.
Yep. There's just so many wrinkles to this 12-team playoff. I'm really excited to find out when we're going to start to see those rankings really move around, how the fringe teams are going to do. And I don't doubt, to the same point that you had brought up just a minute ago about Missouri We talked about Kansas earlier. How long those teams will linger on the fringe, because you know that there's going to be big movement with the big movers and shakers of college football. But how long can you hang on to 10, 11, 12 until you inevitably get bumped out for a bigger program, or you get moved for someone else that had the bigger win?
I feel like anytime a Big 12 team loses, they're going to fall 6, 7 spots just to, so pollsters are like, okay, we don't have to worry about Kansas anymore. They lost a game. We're going to drop them. They're going to plummet.
I don't doubt that whole aluminum tinfoil hat conversation and conspiracy theory about best matchups and best TV ratings will actually come into play for this. Whether it was true or not with the college football playoff before, when it was 4, now that it's 12, if Liberty is going to be coming up and playing, do you really want Liberty to play Kansas?
I don't.
And no, not saying that nobody would want to watch it, but I don't think many people are going to be gung-ho to watch that on a primetime college football weekend when the college football playoff is supposed to be reigning supreme.
TNT can have that one.
It'd be a great Charles Barkley game.
It would.
That'd be fantastic.
You got Liberty.
Those big women down in Lawrence.
Nobody wants to watch Liberty.
We put that for a poll question. Would you watch Kansas and Kansas Liberty in the college football playoff? I like that. I think those are all good. All right, coming up, we've got Jacob Bigelow of Huskers Illustrated joining us on the show. We're going to ask him quickly about the new Will Bolt contract, wrap up some USA basketball talk, and get in to more Husker football chat. That is all coming your way next on the Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. 1620 The Zone, 1620thezone.com. Austin Jacobsen in for the Connor Happer Show today. And looking forward to just hearing from everybody. You can hit us up on the YouTube chat, also at Happer Show on the socials. Try to get a hold of Jacob Bigelow here from Huskers Illustrated later on. And in case you missed it, big news coming out of Husker baseball earlier. Nebraska extended and signed head coach Will Bolt to a new 5-year contract. That means that he's on with the Huskers until the end of the decade. He'll receive an annual salary of $500,000 a year. So not too bad for young Will Bolt. Of course, some of the stats as his head coach tenure continues. 40-22 overall last season. Nebraska reached the 40-win mark for the 19th time in program history, the first time since Bolt's final season as the Huskers associate head coach in 2014. And they, of course, had a big Omaha trip at the end of their season, winning 5 in a row, taking the Big Ten title, tournament title, I should say, since joining the conference, first time since joining the conference in 2013. 8 of Nebraska's 19 NCAA tournament appearances have come with Bolt as a player or member of the coaching staff, including a super regional appearance and 3 College World Series berths. So I ask you, producer Josh.
Oh, hello. Hi.
Can Will Bolt in the next 5 years get Nebraska to a College World Series? He's had talent to do it.
Yeah, 1 in 5 years, huh?
Mm-hmm. Because that has to be the minimum of what this contract is. Troy Dannon has been very clear since he started. The same with football, basketball, baseball, and every other sport in between. He's here to win. He's not here to grow the programs. He's not here to expand stadiums or to enrich the fan experience. He's here to win. So, a new 5-year contract, a boost in pay. Can Will Bolt meet the standard Troy Dannon wants out of the baseball program, which is likely, after you win a Big Ten tournament title, getting to a College World Series?
Certainly within the realm of possibility. 1 in 5 years. In 5 years. God, he's churning out big league talent.
I feel like in the next 5 years, so if we get to 2029 and Will Bolt is on the last year of this contract that he just got extended to, Nebraska's been about the same that they have the past few years. Competitive in the Big Ten tournament title. Maybe they claim another Big Ten tournament. They go to an NCAA regional. But if they haven't went to a College World Series, maybe the better question is, does Troy Dannon move on from Will Bolt if they don't take that next step? I think consistency in college baseball is very difficult.
It is. I think he can do it. You obviously need that right amount of talent and luck.
Right.
But it's possible.
Yeah.
I know that's not a ringing endorsement.
No. Your hesitancy is the same expectation I have.
It's just sort of that northern baseball thing where it's like, God,
right.
You almost have to be just stupid lucky and avoid. Who are you going to avoid, though? I mean, it's all SEC teams.
So here's the follow-up to that. If Will Bolt in the next 5 years makes it to a College World Series, which is, again, what I think the expectation of this contract is, take our program to the next step. We want to continue to build on the blocks in which we have set in the past year.
Right.
Does he receive a new extension right after making the CWS?
Oh, definitely.
I agree.
Certainly somebody would try and poach him away.
Yes. And so I think,
hey, you want to come down? You want to come down south, play where the big boys play?
Yep. A&M. They follow up again?
No.
But I think you bring up a great point too, and I had said it just a moment ago as well. 137 wins in 5 seasons with the Huskers. That is 6th all-time in program history. So you're getting a pretty good coach by Nebraska baseball standards. Now, Nebraska baseball is not exactly a doormat when it comes to collegiate baseball history, but it's not also maybe the one that you have to really have a ringing endorsement for when other schools come calling. If LSU knocked on the door of Tennessee, if Vanderbilt, if any of the premier college baseball programs knocked on Nebraska's door, Will Bolt would probably move on. Even with the allegiance and the ties to Nebraska, it'd be very difficult. And realistically, it'd actually probably be a more tough conversation with Troy Dannon to say, hey, these people want me to go. What can you do for me if I want to stay? That would be the next conversation. But of course, a little bit more elongated bit that time when it comes to how you figure out what you're going to do next when it comes to the baseball program, if you get to that standard. Now, I'm sure at this moment right now, Troy Dannon would love to be in that situation if your baseball team is performing so well that other teams are coming and knocking and you have to figure out how you're going to make it work. That's a great problem to have. You're winning. That is Troy Dannon's number one problem. The problem, I think, with Bolt is that they have had a lot of success when it comes to finding these teams a lot of talent and to develop that talent as well. Mentioned a little bit about some of the players that have been around with Bolt too. He's produced 4 All-Americans, 9 Major League Baseball draft picks, 6 Huskers have been drafted in the top 5 rounds. So that's not just, NFL draft knowledge. You get a couple of guys that get unsigned and into the rosters. You get a couple of guys who go into round 7 and are picked in the final few picks. These are top 5 round players, and we see it too. These are major contributors to some major teams that are in contention right now across Major League Baseball. Now, can he find this talent consistently and be able to produce it for Big Ten wins and not have another fall-off season like we saw a couple of years ago? Nebraska had a great spring, summer in that COVID year. Then the next season felt like they fell off the map early and often. I think it's about consistency with this season to next season. If you can replicate what you did, doesn't necessarily have to be a Big Ten title, but you have to be pretty close to it, and you have to be in a regional.
Got an email here from John. Then we'll take a quick break and then talk to Jacob. He's ready for us.
All right.
John No H emails into the show. Would hosting 2 super regionals count as one CWS? Hosting 2 super regionals?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would agree.
Over 5 years?
Yeah.
I think you'd have to be pleased with that, maybe disappointed with the results, but I mean that's the process working, right?
Listen, if you're hosting a super regional, that'll supersedes itself. You're on the doorstep of a College World Series. Nebraska, they've been in outside conversations to get in to hosting a super regional, but they've never been close enough to actually be there. So we shall see. So congrats to Will Bolt. We'll get more Bolt Bowl coming up, and we're going to talk next with our good friend Jacob Bigelow of Huskers Illustrated. That's next. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone and ZoneTV.live.
heating up.
That's the country song, right? Remember when?
Thank you. Jacob Bigelow.
Yeah. Whenever my open is concocted, throw that in there.
He's on fire.
Jacob Bigelow, Huskers Illustrated, on the Connor Happer Show, on 1620, The Zone.
Shakalaka.
Jacob Bigelow joins us on the Connor Happer Show. Austin in for Happer today, 1620 The Zone. Jacob, how are you doing? And do you have any more fashion advice for the coaching staff that we saw today from the Nebraska football media?
I'm doing well, Austin. Good to be here. Good to talk with you. But no, I'm not handing out any more fashion tips. At least not in very sarcastic all caps like that tweet. But that's interesting. You know, the spread of the color yellow in Lincoln. It's everywhere now. You can't escape it, I guess. If you're coming to the podium for your availability.
Yeah, apparently something else is going on in the world because we've got yellow sleeves on Tony White on the undershirt with a black shirt over top. We had a yellow hat last week. We're losing everything. We're losing it all. So while we talk Husker football, let's stay on there. We did hear from Tony White earlier today with Husker football media availability. Wanted to gauge your thoughts. The big conversation last year was that the defense was going to be ready in the 3-3-5, but the Big Ten and the Husker opponents might not be. Do you think that offenses this season will be better equipped or better ready to attack Tony White's 3-3-5 defense?
I mean, you'd think so, right? I mean, there's a year worth of tape of Nebraska running the 3-3-5, and spoiler alert, a lot of the same personnel being on the field for to run the 3-3-5 that you'll see this coming year. You'd think that after whether you were on the schedule last year or you're you didn't see Nebraska last year, you're on the schedule this coming season. You've got 12 games worth of tape on it from last year, so you'd think there'd be a little less surprise, planning to game plan the week before or on the day of the game. You'd think that coaching staffs would be a little more familiar with the scheme.
With the defense as well, there's been a lot of conversation. We made the joke earlier today on the show that we talk so much about, you give your one-off question about the defense, you assume they're great, then the offense is the primary focus. But I have concern with the Husker linebackers and defensive backs, just namely because there's a lot of transition there, especially with the linebackers. Which unit do you think is better equipped to maybe make that step up quickly at the start of the season? Is it the linebackers or the defensive backs?
That's a good question, Austin, because I have concern with both those areas as well. That's kind of where I've not necessarily pushed back on people who kind of just assume defense was good last year, everybody's back, they're going to be good again. Like, I'm not trying to rain on anybody's parade, but you could make an argument that the guys that are back at the linebacker spot, maybe overachieved last year, so at some point from what we saw. But I mean, it all comes down to your perception, right? I think there's more bodies in the defensive back room. I forget the exact number, but it's pretty staggering. So that may be where I lean in towards of which group is likely to stand out more so early on, just because there's more bodies. There's plenty of guys there, and a lot of guys we haven't seen who outside of Hill and Hartzog and. Trying to think of one other name, but there's a lot of guys we haven't seen, but I mean, there's plenty more options I think that could get on the field and make a splash either in a play or over a game or two.
There's been so much talk on the offensive side about who's the impact freshman outside of Dylan Raiola, if it's going to be maybe an offensive lineman that steps up or maybe a running back or receiver that can make a big difference. What about on the defensive side? Is there a freshman that was maybe attending homecoming a year ago that is going to make a bigger impact than what we are thinking about right now in August?
Yeah, I don't know about freshmen. There's definitely a couple sophomores that I've got my eye on. They've got one of them talking to the media right now in Princeville, Mommy Ellen. And then you think about, I definitely have some stock in him. Some guys like Cam Lenhart, that are going into their sophomore years. That's more so where I have my eyes on, guys who aren't maybe headliners that could, make a splash on the defensive side.
Talking about Cam Lenhart too, he was kind of the premier guy, and Princewell also fit into that mark. But am I wrong in thinking that narrative has changed a little bit? It feels like Princewell is getting a little bit more of the attention and love than maybe Cam is at this point in the offseason.
Maybe a little bit. I feel like most of the the positive buzz on the defense is on that line. Obviously you've got the two big guys in the middle, and everything. You know what you're going to get with those guys. But at the edge spots too. There's a lot of positive buzz. But I've kind of been waiting these last couple of weeks to either hear from Princewell or Cam. After how well they played, during their spurts, last year. But I feel like, especially with him being at the podium today, Princewell is maybe getting a little more of that spotlight. But I don't think that means Cam Lenhart's been forgotten about by any means.
Husker defenses over the years and over the past generations and iterations of the best black shirts feel like they always have maybe that one piece of the puzzle that doesn't necessarily fit in with a traditional defense. You think of like Eric Hagg, Isaac Gifford has somewhat fit that role previously. Is it still Gifford, or is there somebody else that's still being like molded into the defense that kind of fits a bunch of different positions for Tony White?
I think Gifford, it's probably still Gifford. He's kind of, I don't want to say he's the mascot for what they want the defense to be, but obviously he went to media days. Obviously his mantra and how he goes about his business, kind of exactly what both Matt Rule and Tony White are looking for, like mantra persona wise with guys on that side of the ball, and I think he's shown it on the field too. So he's probably the leading candidate to get top billing for that role, but. I think, like it comes back to, what I alluded to earlier with the amount of bodies and just, and how they recruit just guys based on their intangibles and their athleticism. That doesn't mean there aren't, other candidates who could, be in that role either this year or, going into next year or down the line. That's just kind of how, it's a testament to how Rule and that staff recruits. They're just recruiting guys based on measurables, track times, things like that. And, they see things they like, and they get them to Lincoln, and hopefully they can mold them into something more. But in terms of that role on this year's group, it's hard to not say it's Isaac.
Jacob Bigelow of Huskers Illustrated joining us today on the Connor Happer Show with 1620 The Zone. Let's talk about the offense. We have to. It's part of the quota with talking offseason Huskers. Jamal Banks and IGC were big, prominent features of the last Chasing 3 documentary episode. Jamal Banks feels like he is going to be maybe that shoe-in for number one receiver. Can he be a difference maker when it comes to maybe transitioning Dylan Raiola, getting Heinrich Harburg more comfortable? What is his biggest attribute that he can lend to the Huskers for the upcoming season?
No, I think he definitely can be a difference maker. Just based on the experience he has at Wake Forest. And this goes for IGC too. They're definitely the old heads, in that receiver room. And, like Anthony Edwards said on his Instagram post for Team USA, you got to keep some old heads around you, right? And with the young guys, in that room, the Jalen Lloyd, Malachi Coleman's, Carter Nelson in his true freshman season, the experience that guys like those two, Isaiah Nayor, have at their previous stops. That can be important, not just for the young quarterbacks like Dylan Raiola, but for the younger guys in that receiver room too. And just with the way Banks is built, and I think Nebraska. He's not like the biggest body. Obviously he's not. I'm not going to say he's Maurice Purify, but I think he can be a difference maker. And I think there hasn't been a Nebraska receiver to come in from another power conference spot who's has the experience under his belt that Banks has, and is kind of. He's proven and at the power. Words can be hard sometimes at the power conference level, and I think he's going to be a difference maker for that room and for his quarterback.
You mentioned the experience portion of it. Obviously, a lot of people would point to Trey Palmer's year. He didn't come in with as much experience, but connected immediately with Casey Thompson. Is it a priority for the Husker offensive coaching staff, maybe Garrett McGuire, Marcus Satterfield, Glenn Thomas, them working together, that Raiola has a number one guy, or are they going with the committee when it comes to who's catching passes and building trust with the young freshman?
I mean, I'd expect it to be more of a committee, but I mean, obviously, one guy is probably going to rise above the rest. In terms of being like the on whether it's the depth chart, or the stat sheet, and they'll be the clear cut wide receiver one, and that's where I think Banks will end up. But I think with the pro style offense, I mean, I don't think it's going to be heavy on just one guy, and just like I think there's a lot of bodies in that room. It's a deep group, and you've got guys who are at different points of their careers, but are different builds, different. I mean, there's plenty of options in that room, and I think that more lends itself to being a by committee approach.
All right, so enough Husker football talk. I wanted to put a bow with you, our USA basketball expert, and talk a little bit about the gold medal won and what to expect. To start with that, we had an argument on Friday's show. Is Steph Curry the greatest showman in sports? What he did in France against France themselves or Serbia, both were excellent performances. But do you see him as maybe that upper echelon athlete that everyone is buying tickets to go into, the greatest showman in sports?
I don't know about the greatest, but he's definitely up there. I mean, the showmanship from Steph, even, I mean, he's 36 now? He's 35 or 36, I think, and he's still, doing the night, celebration after hitting the last big three in the gold medal game. That man had a hoodie that said night in French at the ready to take pictures with his gold medal and party with the team afterwards, while wearing it. I think he definitely, has a case. And I think, when the Warriors are, on the road, there are still people who are going out of their way to, buy tickets just to see, the Steph Curry show, even in, the later years of his career. And, the impact that he's had on basketball in this country. I mean, I know as corny and cliche as it may sound, people will still say that, Steph Curry taught America that 3 is worth more than 2, taught a whole generation of kids, that 3 is worth more than 2. And, it's still crazy to me that that was his first and probably not probably, I'd say definitely going to be his only Olympics. And he, made the most of the opportunity and put on a pretty good show in the final 2 games for Team USA.
And putting on your cap into 2028, we're all a little bit older, moving a little bit slower, but there will be some significant faces that may not be a part of Team USA for the United States version of the Olympics. Do you think we will see Kevin Durant again? Probably no LeBron, likely no Steph. Who do you think that next round of stars and starting 5 will look like when we see Team USA back in Los Angeles?
Yeah, I think this past couple of weeks was definitely the Olympic stage farewell for KD and LeBron, and I think and Steph too. So, and even though Steph only played in 1 Olympics, but obviously next up you look at guys that were on this team like Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker, and there's a big question mark around Jason Tatum for sure, but Bam Adebayo, and then there's some guys the next group that were either in the that were definitely considered for training camp, that are kind of on the way up. I think Chet Holmgren will likely, be a part of this group in 2028 if he continues on the trajectory that he's on. I think that if Joel Embiid doesn't decide to play for Team USA, maybe Chet gets the call as the second, as the next big man on this group too. After the year he had in Oklahoma City. There's a lot of guards and wings, that are out there, and in the perfect position to be a part of the group. But those are the first names that come to mind.
Last question for you. Going back to Nebraska, obviously head coach for baseball, Will Bolds, received a contract extension all the way through 2029. How does that elevate the expectation of where the program is right now? When your head coach gets a new deal, gets more money, it feels like that increases. Is there maybe a talk or a discussion as to this is the next step that that Coach Bolt needs to take the Huskers?
There might be. I mean, I think after this year, this past season, the extension was pretty well deserved. Through a 40-win season for the first time in a while. The first Big Ten tournament title since joining the conference. Obviously the ending of it down in Stillwater was not what some folks had hoped, but it was kind of kind of served as a reminder to, I think the program and the diehard Nebraska baseball fans, like, oh, this program can still, do this. They obviously people long for, the early 2000s and the feeling that came with all of that. But, to, win the conference and get back to the postseason, it was definitely a reassurance of, oh, this program can still do this, can still get to this point. And now this, contract extension probably gives Will Bolt, like, hey, you got to that point. Can you take the next step? And obviously, if you're going to, be the coach until 2029, that gives you a little bit of, gives you a few more years, and you're going to have to be, the second highest paid coach in the conference, for the time being. So, the resources are there, and they're obviously Troy Dannon is a fan of what they're doing over at Hawks Field. So it'll be interesting to see, going into next year and beyond for Will Bolt.
Jacob Bigelow joining us today. Always appreciate your time and your insight, and looking forward to chatting with you again next time. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it. And have a great rest of your day, all right?
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Same to you, man. Have a good rest of the show.
All right, that was Jacob Bigelow, Huskers Illustrated, joining us today. When we come back in the 1 o'clock hour, we're going to discuss maybe some lunch quick bites, tell you a little bit more about Dylan Raiola, Matt Stafford, and Tyreek Hill getting in with his old quarterback. We'll also break down the latest Chasing 3 episode, what we saw, what we liked, and then get your poll questions and right into the crossover. All coming up within the next hour right here on the Connor Happer Show, 1620thezone.com.
The Connor Happer Show on 1620 The Zone.
Here comes the clown.
1620 The Zone, Connor Happer Show, Austin back in once again, and producer Josh as we cross over into the 1 o'clock hour. Still have an hour until the crossover, folks. Relax. Slow it down. We do have Josh and John will join us at the end of the hour, too. We had some comments into our YouTube chat a little bit asking why Daffy Duck is trending. Care to elaborate?
There was an event last night, Cultural Touchstone.
Mm-hmm.
Many say Daffy Duck appeared on an interview with a certain tech magnate.
Oh, Mark Wahlberg.
We'll leave it at that.
Okay, fair enough. We don't want to get too far into the weeds there, right?
Right.
We got to stay in our lane. Sports. We didn't get to it the last hour because Jacob Bigelow had joined us. Thanks again for joining us there on the program, talking more Husker football, USA basketball, and of course Will Bolt's new contract. But did want to hit on these quick lunch bites. So if you're like me and having a late lunch, which I did make the formal decision, I talked off air with you, Josh, that I think I will be getting that 75-cent burger today.
You're gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Treat yourself.
Thank you. I deserve it. You're right. I deserve it. And we're gonna have another rambunctious storm within the next couple of days. So I figured I might as well enjoy it before the power goes out again.
That's right.
So for these quick bites today, I'm just going to ask you blankly, does it actually mean anything that Matt Stafford thinks Dylan Raiola is good? I don't. Because there are two trains of thought, right? He is Raiola's godfather. He is good friends with Dominic, who was his center for the first 9 or so seasons that he was in the NFL. But so the thought is either he didn't have to say anything and he chose to say good things about Dylan Raiola, right? Or he's just saying it because it's kind of the right thing you do when brought up during a situation, right?
Yeah, I guess ultimately it probably doesn't mean anything. I love hearing it, though.
Yes, right? There's nothing better than getting the notification on your phone that LA Rams quarterback has said positive comments about your freshman quarterback.
That's 2 NFL quarterbacks that have spoke about our young Dylon this offseason.
That is true. That is true.
Lil Cuzzo.
Lil Cuzzo. People forget.
Dylon.
Where did that come from?
Oh, God, you're a tiny baby. Chappelle's show.
Oh.
Dylon.
Okay.
Because I spit hot fire.
Name the 5 best rappers of all time. Dylon, and Dylon. Because I spit hot fire.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I needed that. Yeah. I just love learning on this show.
Well, that's what we do here.
I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people hate it.
Yeah, well, whatever. Number 2 co-host of the Connor Happer Show. No
Can't disrespect Dylan like that. He'll leave.
Whatever, Dylon.
Is that
a real thought? Do people really have? Do they actually consider that young Dylon is going to leave on Nebraska's terms because of 1620 The Zone?
I mean, people made us stop calling Garrett McGuire tiny baby boy last year because
he was going to leave Nebraska.
Yeah, he's going to leave. That guy's leaving anyway.
Well, yeah, he's the smartest mind in the room.
The
youngest mind in the room, by the way.
Both at the same time.
Crazy.
It ain't cause of us.
No, it's not. Yeah, that's a good question to follow up because we are somewhat in the public limelight, especially you and Connor.
A little bit.
The things that you say and do will present ire to some people. Other people will take it as tongue in cheek. But some people will, and I'm a big fan of the Schick and Nick show. They have brought up many times in their past history that people consider that the radio show was hurting recruitment for Nebraska football.
What's this going to do to recruiting?
Is this going to do anything to recruiting? But is that real? Does that even matter anymore? And I bring this up too, just because as well, the David Sanders thing is super interesting because obviously a huge social media poll came out of that many people showed up to cheer him on. And then it spurned a Tennessee offset of it where 15 people showed up. But I don't know if that's as big of a deal as we're making it out to be. Now, I'm sure that it helps, but does it hurt as much? We've heard from like a couple of the former players that have said like, oh, they'll ride with you, they'll die with you, and sometimes they'll crucify you too. But I don't I don't know if it's as big and prominent as the common Husker fan says. If you're going to be critical of the Husker program, that every single player is going to see it, and it does sway their decision to go somewhere. Because there are crazy college football fans everywhere. If you think Nebraska is bad, Nebraska in a vacuum is bad, but comparative to Texas or Texas A&M or any
Not
of
a cult.
the other SEC schools, I feel like Nebraska is somewhat tame. It's just that it looks bad because this is all we've got. This is the only thing we got to complain about. And we can do it in such a way.
Yeah, I'm sure it's maybe not more passionate, but it's probably weirder in the South.
I think it also brings in the whole conversation then as well. And I was thinking about this before, and I know it was touched on yesterday when Matt Rule closed off practice in that scrimmage on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Matt Rule is giving too much into his program? Are there too many eyeballs that can view the Huskers?
Well, I do think it's a little weird because he said before this offseason really got going, like, hey, I'm never going to have the cameras follow me around again. I didn't like that.
He said it was for the kids. It was for recruitment. I don't really like that. It's not about me.
Yeah, and then here he is doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
I think to a certain extent, you got to do something like that. I mean, maybe those episodes are a little longer than they need to be.
Right.
Like, I don't know how much of a look you need to be giving, but
and I don't know the inside of all the other teams across the country. Like, I don't know if Tennessee is doing this. I don't know if Ole Miss is doing this, but there are some teams that every team has social media coordinators and cameras and everything. You would be foolish to think that they don't. But I don't know if Matt Rule can really wave the white flag and just be like, "Oh no, it's the media's fault," or it's so and so's fault. You have allowed. What's the phrase? You've allowed the wolves into the hen house. I mean, they're sitting out. Right. They're sitting outside your door, right? You've allowed media access to many a practice.
I'm sure the chasing three is pretty controlled. We're not seeing anything that's going to create a huge scandal.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. Potential scandal.
Shutting it down.
Yeah. Boom, boom, boom. I don't know. I feel like this is I don't think it's to the point where Nebraska has to worry and look over their shoulder that people are stealing their signs and all that sort of stuff too. But the amount of things that Matt Rule allows eyes into his program for, I think can be translated later if they are not successful into negatives.
Okay, sure.
Right now, they are not. I wouldn't even say that they're positives right now. I think they're positives for the fan perspective. They're great engagement farming. They're great to get people talking. I mean, 90% of what I've consumed of the Huskers over the past 3 days has been the documentary, the media availability the past few days, and rewatching old clips from different football practices that the media has been allowed to go in and watch.
Definitely can kind of control the narrative on shows like this, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, if we put out a new episode of Chasing 3, that's what these yahoos will be talking about on the radio instead of, I don't know, offensive line depth.
But then we made the joke during the crossover too this morning, but I don't think that it is as big of a deal. Nebraska, for the first time in a long time, its biggest issues are strictly football related and not controversy related. And even in the Scott Frost era, there was, why doesn't he have a special teams coordinator? You gave too many people reasons to talk about all of the other things that surround your program. The Maurice Washington issues, the amount of transfers you had to come in, the complete overhaul of the coaching staff, all of the other things that were surrounding the program that were more Reddit commentary than they were journalism reporting. And in the Bo Pelini era, there was always somebody that was getting in trouble. There was always going to be some off-season issues. Of course, the leaked tape and everything else that came with Bo Pelini. Bill Callahan wasn't a part of the tradition of Husker football, and he was getting rid of the walk-on program and the change from the option offense and bringing in pro-style players. And then Mike Riley had to deal with the big confusion as to who even is this guy? Why is he a part of the program? The strength and conditioning changing dramatically. For the first time in a long time, even though the most eyes and the most cameras have been pointed at Nebraska because they've allowed them in, I think you're right. Maybe Matt Rule has done a great job of just being Big Brother, where he's just controlling every amount of information that comes out, and he is the primary source. If anything is going to be released about the Huskers, it's through my eyes and through my lens and my words. In that sense, I don't mind it. But again, once you let these amount of cameras in, when things start to go haywire and go sideways, I think that's when the problem can start to come up.
Yeah, right now, if Nebraska said, you know what, we're not going to continue the Chasing 3 series, everybody would just go, oh, okay.
Yep.
Sure, that's fine.
I don't know if that's true.
You don't think so?
Well, last year when they were doing the in-season documentary and they were doing all that stuff, and Rule came out with that comment about like, oh, well, this is just for the kids, just for the kids. We're just doing it for recruitment, just an inside look, blah, blah. When they went on that losing streak, there was a very vast amount of those games that were not covered. Every win got a full episode, and they got all these great highlights, and everyone was celebrating in the locker room. We got these pumped up pregame speeches from Rule. Everyone was feeling great. But there wasn't a whole lot of losses and how the team responded to those losses in that documentary last year.
Interesting.
If Nebraska loses to Colorado, how many episodes of Chasing 3 do we have? They probably go a while before we see another one.
I mean, I feel like you got to talk about that. That'd be a big night game.
Yeah, but
ruckus environment.
But again, they don't have to.
They don't have to.
They don't have to. They don't have to. I don't know.
Depends on if there's a storyline within there that like, okay, we can spin it this way.
Right. And again, the growth of social media, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. You know, your college professor can tell you all about that. But I think it's a good thing that outside sources are talking about Dylan Raiola and the Huskers are not talking about Dylan Raiola. Because who has been the biggest pieces of the Nebraska puzzle that aren't included in all of their preseason social hype from themselves? Matt Rule is featured but never solo interviewed. It's always the director of something or another. Or it's an assistant coach for this. Or it's a senior-led player here. And Dylan Raiola has yet to be mentioned. He's in a lot of the shots, and you're looking for him quite a bit. You find the 15 pretty easily, but he hasn't been interviewed. He hasn't had a feature. He hasn't... the most we've seen from him was him walking into the dorms and moving in, which was already covered on social media the weeks before the episode even came out. However he's controlling this narrative is pretty impressive, but eventually I fear that the narrative can get out of hand very quickly too, and then once you lose control, you can't get it back. So I guess at the end of the day, it's the same conversation we've always had. Just win your games, and it doesn't matter what you do, right?
Yeah, win your games, and I really commend them for holding off on the Dylan hype.
Yeah.
Like they're going almost out of their way to be like, yeah, I mean, he's one of the 105 on the roster. I don't know. It's not special.
I mean, if you were to power rank to a Nebraska football fan, who would you want to see on the next episode of the Chasing 3 documentary or on any episode of the Chasing 3 documentary? Dylan Raiola would be one. How far down would you have to go to get to Elliott Brown, to Isaiah Garcia Castaneda? I mean, like Jamari Butler was great. Marcus Buford was great.
Sure.
Mario Buford got a little like headlight in there too. I'm sure Deshaun Singleton will get appeared here sooner or later because they've been talking about him quite a bit. But I mean, we had a almost 2.5 episode feature on Elliott Brown than we did Dylan Raiola. I mean, content wise, a bit interesting, but
2.5 episodes, huh?
Not bad. 2.5.
Wow.
He's pretty good, I guess. Hype guy.
Okay.
Hype guy, for sure.
I'm happy for him.
Well, when he catches a pass in the UTEP game or Northern Iowa game,
we're all gonna Leo DiCaprio.
Yeah.
There he is.
Hold on a second.
There he is.
Who's that guy?
That's him.
Is that? I found him. Well, again, Matthew Stafford said Dylan Raiola was good. That's great. So great. So happy for him. And wanted to hit on this, too, for our last quick bite before we talk more Chasing 3 episode coming next. Tyreek Hill gave his pitch as to why he was the number one player in the NFL. And he said it's because you're an NFL player. The quarterback is not specific to an NFL player. And I wanted to throw this question out into the open universe. Can a position outside of quarterback and football in general actually be considered the best on your team? Your quarterback's the most important position, yes. But my argument for this is think of the best player on a team that doesn't have a great quarterback, right?
Right.
That means that they're not a good team, right? Like that's just how that works. Like if you can have
theoretically,
you can have an above average roster everywhere and you could be a very good team, but your quarterback has to meet the level of your play. The only exception, and I hate saying this because he was great, Blake Bortles and the Jacksonville Jaguars in that one off year when they went to the AFC Championship game, played below the standard of the team, but the rest of the team was so great around him and they broke through at the right time, did all that great stuff. But if you don't have a solid, if not great quarterback, how are you supposed to be competitive? You can have Tyreek Hill. You can have 3 Tyreek Hills for all I care. But if your quarterback isn't able to manufacture the offense, there's no reason that you should have 3 of the top 3 players in the league that aren't quarterback.
Man, I think you're onto something,
right? And I know the argument is that the quarterback's overhyped, overplayed, and even I get a little nauseated even with the Heisman Trophy race that everyone goes, it can't always just be a quarterback. We should get a running back. We should get this. But the truth of the matter is that if you have a great team, your quarterback is at least above average. At minimum. I mean, think of like Kirk Cousins. The Vikings have been competitive. People consider the Falcons to be a premier team in the NFC South because he raised the level of their team. And now everybody agrees that the Falcons are this much better team because Kirk Cousins is the quarterback instead of Desmond Ridder. They didn't think it before when Ridder was the quarterback. They said, look at all these holes. Look at all this stuff. They can't figure this out. They don't have a pass rush. Now it doesn't even matter that they don't have a pass rush. They have a quarterback that can get the ball down the field.
Just score 40 points a game.
Yeah. People forget if you outscore your opponent, you win.
That's true.
Yeah. It is. It's a little known fact around those parts.
But yeah, teams like the Dolphins and the Niners, where the quarterback isn't the best player on the team, how far can they reasonably go?
Right. The 49ers is a great example because no one, I mean, you use the same logic we used with the Dylan Raiola ranking of chasing 3. How far down does Brock Purdy go in the best players on the team ranking? Probably like 5th or 6th, right? I mean, as it stands, Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, Fred Williams, and then maybe Brock Purdy? 7? I didn't even put Kittle, so he's 8.
Oh, yeah.
He'd be the 8th best player, just off of the top of my head. But what does Brock Purdy do? He meets the serviceable management of the rest of a great roster. I don't know. I feel like that is the best way to put it. And if you're the receiver that was just voted number 1 player in the league, you should feel this way. You should feel like, you're more important, but you're not. Realistically, you have to get a better quarterback.
I would tell everybody if I was number 1.
Yes. It'd be easy to. Also, Tyreek Hill, do you think he could beat Noah Lyles?
I'd love to watch.
I would too.
I'm just morbidly curious about it.
They should do it for at least a pay-per-view.
I mean, surely he can't, but what if he can?
But he could. What if he could?
Yeah.
I also want RG3 in there too because he'll throw himself in the conversation just for whatever reason.
Stop and eat a croissant halfway through.
Who do you think? What do you think would finish faster? Okay, let me rephrase that. Who do you think could finish? There's no easy way to say this. I'm just gonna go
the race.
No,
finish the race.
Who could finish their respective race faster? Okay. Tyreek Hill and Noah Lyles racing in a 200-meter dash, or RG3 eating a croissant while the other 2 race?
Oh, you can't finish a croissant in 20 seconds.
It's too dry.
Yeah.
Too dry. What? Okay, so
even if it was the butteriest, flakiest croissant, you're not eating it in 20 seconds.
No, you're not. You can't. I agree with you. I like that.
Yeah, maybe a 400. It might be closer. Then you'd have 40 seconds?
Yeah, not bad. Well, those 2 would be exhausted by the end of it. Tyreek Hill would cramp and have to walk off the field, and Noah Lyles would get COVID around the second turn, so they wouldn't be able to make it.
Nobody's finished yet. Now's my chance.
And that's when we get the second photo of RG3 in the croissant.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like a lap. 400. Yeah.
Okay. 400. All right. Well, those are just some lunch quick bites. Didn't mean to get food related, but somehow found our way there. Coming up, I'll tell you a little bit more about that Chasing 3 latest episode if you haven't looked at it yet. And my concern for maybe negative vibes surrounding the Husker football program. People don't want to talk about negative vibes, but they could be.
The vibes are good. You can't be concerned.
It's back.
No. Concern.
I love it. I love it. All right, that's coming next. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone and ZoneTV.live. Well, back again. Connor Happer Show, 1620 The Zone. And we've already talked so much about Chasing 3. We have to start this segment with something else happening in our chat right now. And I'm so tired of people fighting in YouTube. How dare they?
You don't have to bring attention to this.
Okay, then I won't. Sorry, Doug. In the chat. Apparently, you guys aren't critical enough of the Jays, is what the chat's talking about right now.
Yeah, Doug says that Greg McDermott can't win the big one in the tourney, but he has won one, which is more than others.
Right. And he's upset because Greg McDermott has two capital letters in his last name, I suppose.
Doug fancies himself a comedian at times.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry we gave him a spotlight. I didn't mean to encourage that type of behavior in our YouTube chat.
It's okay. You know, the chat is there for whatever people need the chat to be there for.
That's a good way to
you wanna throw some takes out there, you're more than welcome to throw some takes out there.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, there you go. It's an open space for you to discuss amongst yourselves peacefully.
Shout into the void.
Please do. Please. Have you ever shouted into the void before? You ever go home to an empty house, just shout?
I have before. Yeah, sure.
It's worth it. It's a good experience every once in a while. You can't do it
time
regularly.
and place, yeah.
Yeah, you can't do it every day because if you do, it's a bit much.
No, then you got to talk to someone.
Well, hopefully not yourself because you'd be doing enough of that.
No.
Speaking of talking to yourself, how about everybody that checked out the latest episode of Chasing 3? What did you take from Matt Rule chewing out his team in front of the open practice? I actually like that little aspect of it because we haven't seen this version of Rule very often.
Right. That's why I kind of liked it too. Like, okay, we know what to do. He's a process oriented guy. And if you're messing with this process, he's going to come after you.
Right.
And they were messing with the process.
it also, and this is speculative, but it made me think, I don't know if he was such a big fan of that open practice. I wonder if he had that put on him. He did not seem very excited about the fact that there was a lot of fans that were there watching his team kind of not have their best showcase performance. I don't know. It kind of just felt like that he wasn't too thrilled with the fact that they were getting into fights in front of fans. Some of the fans were able to record and see what it looked like, and they were missing a couple of assignments and plays. It felt like there was a little more frustration than just with his players in that one clip from the show.
You think he's out on open practice?
I don't know if he's out on, and we talked about in the last segment too about how open he's been with media availability, letting fans and a lot of eyes see his program. I think he wants to control how much is seen of his program. And I think a good coach knows when you're due for maybe a bad practice or when you're due for a learning experience. And I'm not sure that was one that he was all that comfortable with. That felt maybe a little bit out of his control, too much more. They had the Husker Radio Network people talking during the practice and engaging with fans and putting stuff on the big screens. And the players themselves in the documentary said, yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. You get fans that watch and people that are there. Felt like a game day atmosphere, even with only 3,000 people. But there's a part of me that, as a creature of habit myself, if there's something that I can't control, that I didn't have my hand in, that I'm trying to make sure that the field of play is even for me to have the most success, that would frustrate me as well.
It would go along with a lot of the things we know to be true about Matt Rule, that he would like to not have any fans take a play or something out of context.
Yeah.
And there's a bigger picture than the however long the open practice lasted. But they don't know that, and they're reacting.
Right. They're just trying to get things going, right?
Boy, team looked really bad today.
Well, that's the other part, too, is we've gotten to a point now of nearly a year and a half of Matt Rule. I've heard him for 2 years come November on press conferences and everything else that he's done in interviews and how he speaks. He uses the same type of conversation styles and the same type of iterations when a question is brought up specifically about someone. He will try to parlay it into talking about the attributes or how well this person has developed or how far that they have come. One thing I've noticed, though, about Rule, and especially comparative to where he were with Scott Frost when it came to his press conferences, Rule won't lie to you about anything. Rule will tell you his version of what he wants you to hear. It's your understanding of what he's saying underneath that. And there are certain things that you've come to, if you listen to Rule each and every time that he's been up to a podium, each and every interview that he's ever done, he says things very similarly, or he says the same thing over and over and over again. But there's a lot of times when he talks about some of the things that you can tell that there's something building on the opposite way. I thought it was kind of key on Saturday when he talked about closing the media down. He acted and looked exhausted. It's one of the more tired Rules we have seen through his tenure so far. And I thought it was just very, very interesting to take note of the fact that he lost track a little bit of where he was. And again, you have that Friday night, that Saturday night scrimmage out in front of the public. And then the following week, you close everything up and have a scrimmage in which he was frustrated once again and showcased being tired, said it specifically. These are all just very unique things that I think we should maybe not make bigger deals out of, but at least note in the back of our heads for future use. Because if the team is getting a little bit chippy in an open practice in front of media and fans, and then he shows up a week later and he's exhausted and tired and can't keep a couple of things straight, maybe some of the same unique issues are popping up once again. I'm not sure that this is a team that's a uber passionate team that's going to come out there and fight for their right on every play and, be swinging and trying to take personal fouls when they can and set the tone and intimidate other opponents. I don't get that vibe from a Matt Rule team or from the players that they've acquired. But the chippiness and an edge that a team can play with is somewhat developed in practice. You have to either lean into that, or you snip it as quickly as it shows up. And I think the best argument you can make is on the opposite side with Colorado. They follow the lead of their head coach, and they're all talk and they're all this other stuff. But if a certain player fights with another player during a practice at the Huskers, how do they respond? Does Matt Rule allow that to go on? Is it a learning lesson, or do they throw them on the line for gassers, as we saw in the episode?
This is the time where those plays that you want to execute in November and December become muscle memory.
Right.
And, we don't have time for all this other stuff. And I think a lot of times we, as the media, make a big deal of a scuffle in practice.
Mm-hmm.
And now, should the players involved in a scuffle know that it is an open practice and everything will be taken out of context and blown up out of proportion? Yes, they should. But we are dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds.
Right, yeah. And I'm not going to sit up here and say that I never got into a fight either. Lost every fight I've ever been in, but it's fine. Yeah, it's fine.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sad.
It is. It's very. But what can you do?
Win.
True. Or, as I learned, stop getting in so many fights.
Also, that would be the other the other alternative, yes.
Yeah, it's one of those things that exactly what you said. When someone gives this team the opportunity to form their identity, they usually follow the road of their head coach, right? So Matt Rule is trying to set the example of we are going to be a hardworking team. We're going to outmaneuver everybody, and eventually we will teach our high-level athletes to be better football players than what is on the field facing us. But the one thing that he hasn't done this year, comparative to last year, he's not taking a lot of flyers on guys that have question marks. It feels like this is a team built on camaraderie, a team built on leadership, and a team built on experience. This version of the Huskers, you would hope, overcomes a lot of those other mistakes that they have seen before. The amount of penalties that they had acquired, the amount of unsportsmanlike conducts, the amount of different alignment issues, assignment issues, those should be corrected. The only thing that Nebraska should lose on in the upcoming season in Rule's grand scheme is if they are outperformed on the field. When the ball's snapped, if you lose in that way, I think Rule's good with. But everything that you can control outside of that, I think Rule has tried to make sure that that is pieced together. And he was very frustrated in that moment when he was yelling at his team during the latest episode. I also thought it was a lot of just negative vibes that kind of came out of that episode too in different forms, specifically from Rule. They start the episode with him going to the Pat McAfee show. He's going around and doing his media bits and chatting it up and having smiles and talking about getting FaceTimes from podcast hosts. But then everything else that we see from Rule for the rest of the episode is him putting guys on the line, yelling at guys for not paying attention, making them run gassers in the episode. And even it felt like they put on a little bit of a show at the end of the Husker practice for the punt returns for the linemen because Rule was like, well, there are people here. We might as well do something fun. So I don't know. I'm not saying that there are bad vibes around the Husker football program. I'm not saying that Matt Rule has a negative attitude towards the program at all. But again, as you kind of mentioned, when there's a lot of these negative details that come out in a media that you can control, in a story in which they are telling, which has not had its conclusion yet in the documentary sense, because the end of this story will come at the end of the season. How this episode played out, to me, did not make Matt Rule look all that fantastical or make him look like he was someone that everyone is going to really dive into. Because, I mean, he called out everybody in that episode. There was not a person that really went unscathed. And he called out some guys that are big names. He called out Isaac Gifford. He called out Jamari Butler, guys that had gotten leadership moments in this series before and said that they needed to step up. Now, that's coaching, that's leadership in itself, but if he's just doing it there, that's one thing, but is he doing it consistently? Is it a problem that needs to be addressed?
Don't we love a coach yelling at his players in early August, though? Don't we love him really getting after him in August?
Yeah, I'd agree. But again, if you're putting the media out, there's no reason to put that out there.
Very true.
So why is it in this episode? Why are you showcasing a negative feature? Is it because you want to showcase that the team is going to overcome this issue, which you do not know?
I mean, if you win 8 games, win 9 games, even more, boy, he looks like a genius.
But
really got after him in August.
But what if the Huskers come out against UTEP in that 2:30 kickoff and it's hot at Memorial Stadium and a guy makes a late hit? One of the minors comes after and knocks out a Husker late, or they hit Raiola after a throw, and guys get into a fist fight in the middle of the field. Is he trying to showcase us that this team is what it is beforehand and just getting ahead of an issue?
I guess if that happened, we would certainly have a lot of fuel for that, right?
Right.
Because it, quote unquote, wouldn't have come out of nowhere.
I don't know. Rule is always so good about getting ahead of an issue, about speaking out of both sides of his mouth at the same time, and not in a bad way. I don't want to make that into a negative light. I think that that's a good thing. He always gives you both perspectives and both sides in one comment and one commentary. Of course, he does it in 17 minutes, but he gets there. But everything he does is so intentional when it comes to all of the things that they release for Nebraska, how they release it, where they put it out, how they're putting it out, all this great stuff too. So why is it that this is specifically there? Maybe it's just a content thing and maybe we're overhyping it to the moon. But I think it'd be naive of us in this role and Husker fans to consider that it's not there for some sort of reason.
Keep it in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to think Matt Rule knows what he's doing and would tend to have an idea of, okay, you can put that out there, you can put that out there. Don't put that out there, but that one's good to go. Yeah.
Right. I mean, they even showcased him in the team meetings, being more critical of the team as well, talking about the success and all that sort of stuff too.
It's winning time.
And again, you can't, would Husker fans call out the Huskers and Matt Rule if they were only putting out the good tape in the episodes? I don't think so. I don't think that they're showcasing bad stuff just to make sure that they're playing an even and fair field.
Yeah. I think most people know that, okay, this is a Nebraska produced thing,
right?
Like a grain of salt, all that. Right? A lot of people know that, right?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, when you get the notification that Nebraska Huskers has released a new episode of Chasing 3, the documentary.
Oh, you young people love notifications.
We do. It keeps us in the know. The last thought I had on all of this from the latest episode of Chasing 3, apparently our receivers are going to be the greatest team of all time.
Let's go.
They self-describe themselves as big, quick, fast, and aggressive.
Self-described. Okay.
Which is usually the best way to know an evaluation of yourself.
Austin, how would you describe yourself?
Big, fast, quick, and aggressive.
Okay.
But lost every fight I've ever been in.
You're picking fights with people who are bigger, faster, more aggressive than
exactly, too. I'm always punching up. That's my problem.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm sorry, I try to fight the best. What can I do?
Fight someone your own size.
But hopefully they are big, quick, fast, and aggressive, because I mentioned it with Jacob Bigelow, and he talked a little bit about it, but I think it's a bigger priority for Nebraska to find that number one guy. And I'm not sure it can be Thomas Fedoni because he is a true tight end. You can flex him out, do all that stuff. I think you need that receiver. You need someone that Dylon can get locked in with and can just say on 3rd and 10, Casey Thompson meme, and chuck it down there and hope someone gets it. Right? Trey Palmer's down there somewhere. Who's Dylan going to look at next, right? So the Chasing 3 latest episode you can check out on YouTube right now if you want to go find it. Let me know your thoughts as well. And make sure you're giving us a follow on our social channels at Happer Show. Comment and join our conversation on all the different ways you can get involved. Email, you can text in, you can also comment on our stream. Coming up, we'll take a look at those poll questions, give you what to watch, and then your crossover is coming next right here on 1620 The Zone and 1620thezone.com. 1620 The Zone. Connor Happer Show. Austin Jacobsen wrapping up the show for you before we hit to the crossover here in just a moment. Let's take a dive back into those poll questions and what to watch for tonight. Producer Josh, what do we have on the polls today?
Well, we begin with the morning crossover. It's not a euphemism. We genuinely asked the question. Do you love laying sod? 75% of the audience said no.
Wow. City folk just don't get it.
Bit of an upset there.
Sod and farmers only. Same convo.
Also from the morning crossover today, are we skimping on toppings?
Now, this was out of context. We were talking ice cream. I think people might have assumed that this was a pizza-related question.
I would see it, and if I hadn't listened to the show, I also would have thought pizza toppings, yes. Right. 80% of the audience says, yes, we are skimping.
Well, regardless, we got the result we needed. So that's
right.
Good.
That's
that
right.
is good.
Do we give enough credit to Reddit?
Great alliteration. Great job.
Right.
Great rhyme.
2/3 of the audience says no. We do not give enough credit to Reddit. That's a bit of an upset for me.
Oh, you thought Reddit was getting enough credit?
Yeah, I think.
Okay,
it's fine.
Are you online too much? Is that why you thought that?
I try not to be. I'm a bit more John Bishop when it comes to citing Reddit as a news source. Bit of an old.
Yeah,
that way. Fourth and final poll question today, most voted on poll question of the day as well. Would you watch Liberty versus Kansas in the college football playoff opening round?
Wow.
75% of the audience, 76 actually, say yes, they would.
Now, we asked this at the wrong time.
You're sickos.
We asked this at if you had other college football playoff games on at the same time, and it's not August 13th, and you're starved for football.
Right.
You went through 14 weeks of football.
Yeah, today's probably the exact wrong time to ask that. We're just desperate for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't blame the audience, but I don't think they fully grasped the question in general. But
they didn't really think about it.
No. It's one of those the test questions where you need to go back and look at it again. Yep. You put a little star next to that one. Should have put that, but we didn't.
Go back, look again.
It's fine. All right, so those polls, and what are we watching tonight? Bachelorette episode 6, I think. That on there?
I believe I saw that is on. You can take this time to update us about your fantasy league.
I'm 11th out of 12th.
Ooh,
and both
slipping.
Yes, one of my guys got eliminated last night, which your lineup is set for both episodes early in the week. So I will get 0 points tonight, and I will definitely be a loser.
Oh, man. Sad.
The worst part is, too, the person in 12th in the league hasn't set their lineup since the opening day. So I am basically last.
You're running parallel with the person that doesn't care.
It's very bad. It's very bad,
yeah.
yes.
Sports on TV tonight. The Major League Baseball has many games on that you can watch.
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday night, TBS, they are in Milwaukee as the Brewers host the Dodgers. Mookie Betts not staying at that haunted hotel, staying in an Airbnb. We'll see how it works for him. 7:00 tonight. Rockies Diamondbacks 8:40 on ESPN Plus out in the desert. Padres host the Pirates 8:30 MLB Network, and your MLB TV free game of the day 8:45. Braves out west facing the Giants 1-0 in 10 innings.
Whoa!
Big win for the Braves last night.
Congrats, Braves!
1-0 in 10 innings. Imagine.
It's like Cubs level of hitting.
Right. A lot of strikeouts. And terrible umpiring. 8:00 HBO tonight. Hard Knocks training camp with the Chicago Bears. I don't know what's going to happen, but you can probably tell already what's going to happen, right?
I have a good guess. Caleb Williams wins MVP.
Caleb Williams looks great.
Whoa.
Doesn't practice.
What do you mean?
Hall of Fame game. Oh, it rained. Oh my gosh. What do we do?
And Matt Rule yells at the team.
That's right. ESPN coming up at 2:00. You will want to watch NBA Today because it is the official reveal of the Emirates NBA Cup schedule. That's right.
Okay.
Schedule reveal. We love a schedule reveal, don't we? Don't we, America? You need to be consistent on this. It can't just be the NFL schedule that you clamor for. It has to be the NBA Cup. But Josh, what is the NBA Cup? That's what we renamed the in-season tournament
Oh, gross.
because it had bad branding.
No.
All of you people hated it, so we had to change the name to something much more generic.
Well, to be fair, the ISB is just like a letter away from like irritable bowel syndrome. So you do need to change that.
Yeah, that's right. And finally tonight on ABC, I imagine this is just before The Bachelorette.
Okay.
Celebrity Family Feud.
Oh.
Flavor Flav today. Team Flav against Bobby Lee, and then in the second, you get 2 half-hour episodes in the 1-hour block. Donny Osmond versus comedian Ken Marino.
Anybody?
This thing on? Hello? Steve Harvey? That's what to watch tonight.
Okay, I like it.
Not much.
So my last day here for covering for Connor. Appreciated you. Thanks for your help.
Of course.
You were fantastic. I was enjoyed working with you and everything. You made it super easy. And
you helped us.
Oh, I don't think so. Movie recommendation. Can you give me one? Because tonight is not. It's not a huge night for me to be able to really dive into too many sports. Tuesday night baseball doesn't really move the needle for me.
Doesn't move the needel for you, huh?
You have a movie rec.
Sad. Well, you can finally rent Twisters at your own home, but you've seen Twisters.
I have seen Twisters, yes. Had the Glen Powell experience.
Man, movie recommendation. Give me a genre.
You know, I've been wanting like an action comedy. Do you have any of those? Like
Action comedy.
Yeah, do you have any of those like nestled in?
Have you seen the new Beverly Hills Cop?
I have not.
Okay.
New Beverly Hills
Have you
Cop?
seen any Beverly Hills Cops?
I have.
Okay. Do you like Beverly Hills Cop?
It's not my cup of tea, but I'll view. View.
Okay. This was a little better than I thought it would be.
Okay.
I mean, it's a Netflix movie, so you can definitely move about the house. You don't have to be locked into the chair.
Do some laundry.
Staring at the screen. Yes.
Right.
Fold your socks while watching the Netflix movie. Yes.
Okay. All right. I'll dig it. Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna get into that.
Okay. It's a lot of pressure.
It is. Yeah. I'll report back to you.
Thank you.
But again, appreciate all of you for tuning in and listening. It's been great being on here. It was always one of my dreams to be able to get on 1620. So hopefully I can keep doing this for whenever you guys need me. So call me up out of the bullpen, as the kids say.
Please dream higher.
Okay. Well, you got to remember, I was growing up in Western Nebraska.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Big city living.
I was like, oh boy, Omaha. They've got so many roads. I don't know if I can do that.
Multiple stoplights.
3 interstates. Oh no. But if you're ever looking for more, at Happer Show, make sure you're checking out 1620thezone.com for all the radio replays. Josh does a great job putting those up. And if you want to hear more for unsportsmanlike conduct, we do have a crossover coming up next right here on 1620 The Zone. This has been the Connor Happer Show.
Restrictions apply.
Hi, I'm Nick Brumell, owner of Royalty Roofing. The recent storms wreaked havoc on our community. Our team at Royalty Roofing is here to help. We're local, skilled, licensed, and bonded. We work for you to ensure you get the funds you deserve and make sure that the work is done to your satisfaction. Don't take risks with your biggest investment, your home. We are Better Business Bureau Integrity Award winners and Best of Omaha winners. Cover your roof with Royalty. Visit us today at royaltyroofing.org.
Meet Cheryl. Hey, she's on vacation.